funded. But hey, we're live. All right. So let's get people to introduce themselves first. We can start with JD and then work down to Katrina.
Alrighty. My name is JD Gonzalez. I am a writer over at Covenant Comics. I have a Kickstarter going for my comic book Crossboss, which is live on Kickstarter. And yeah, that's me.
Salutations. My name is Dustin Burnell. I'm the writer and creator of The Listener, as well as Greed. I own Half Cowabunga Comics, and we publish as well. So, yeah, that's me.
All right. I am Todd Zerloff. I didn't know if he had something else to say. I'm sorry.
Hey, Kylan.
My name is Todd Zerloff. I am the CEO, creator, CFO, everything of Singularity Studios Publishing, a thing I just made up to put on the back of my comics. I currently have a comic called Confidence on Kickstarter right now. Yeah, and go ahead, Katrina.
All right. Well, I'm Katrina Rotes. I own and run Cat Scratch Press, which has two folds. It publishes all my books. Convenient, right? And then I'm also an editor, so I work on comics and novels as well.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, you and Chuck are the two editors that I really know. I feel like there's way more, but those are the only two.
And we're in constant competition with each other.
Yeah.
Chuck's winning, just so you guys know.
But
I mean, Chuck's my editor, so I really can't.
Yeah, he's mine too, so you might have to do some, you got to grease the wheels a little bit or something.
I got my last big job, though, because I showed off pictures of my cats. So if anyone's really into cats, I'm willing to share.
So let's start with GD. So what's your little elevator pitch for Crossboss?
Elevator pitch. All right. Are we going to the top floor or are we just going on one floor up? So Crossbones is basically about this cartel member who is imbued with the weird and strange ability to control his bones, and it's really freaky. And with that, he is kind of faced with the challenge of righting the wrongs of his past, and that's kind of like the main theme of the story, but as well as taking down the cartel that has betrayed him. And so it's got like, crime and, drama to it, but it's also, inspired by the supernatural and like superheroes, because that's what I like. So, yeah.
Right on.
Dustin, what is your elevator?
Man. So elevator pitch for Greed's real difficult because it's a spinoff. So I'll give you guys a short synopsis of Greed. Greed is like a like my Let My Hair Down book is how we put it, because the listener is very serious and it's real, out there and real hyper violent and whatnot. Greed's a lot of fun. It's about a 10-year-old kid and his monster under the bed. That's not to say that it's also not super wild and monstrous and whatnot, because it is. But it's a lot of fun. Like what does a 10-year-old kid do when he's introduced to gods and demons, and how does he survive in this world with this being that says he's his best buddy? How do you trust a little green guy that came out from under your bed? So that's basically what it is. The antics between the two of these characters, dealing with theology and characters from it, and mythology as well. What's going on, how they're going to survive this war that's coming that they find out about, and what's the inner story behind the little dude from under the bed? What's he hiding from this kid? So, and we've got, for those of you that have read The Listener, in book 3, we'll start seeing crossover characters from both series. So I'm really excited about that. Hey, man, everybody's got to have a name for theirs. Mine's actually got like 3 of them. So.
Okay, Todd, what's your elevator pitch?
All right, so my story, Confidence, Volume 1, follows the exploits, I guess, if you will, of Alan, who is a intergalactic con man, basically. Sorry, I've said this a million times, and it's like it's totally new. He's a con man in space, 32nd century, and he is cruising around on a space cruise ship, luxury cruise liner, and he is sort of charming and conning his way through all the passengers and the crew members to obtain small pieces of a puzzle that you don't really get the whole picture of until the end of the book. So you just see him kind of going around doing his thing. He narrates a lot of it, talking about what he's doing and how he's doing it more than the why, and then find it all out at the end. So it's more comedy, lighthearted, I should say, maybe not totally comedy, but we got a sort of lighthearted nature to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's awesome. Okay.
Sounds really cool.
Kat, you don't have a comic, you have a book.
I don't have a comic. I am the odd girl out on most of these shows. They just let me in because I work in comics. So like, close enough. She has art in her book. We'll call it good. Guys, I am the author of Apo's Army, which is my current book on Kickstarter. It is 20 plus short stories for kids all about cats, based on actual real cats, most of which live in feral cat colonies down in Florida. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting some of the pictures of the actual cats that the stories are based on. And ding, that's my time.
Sorry. I made money.
Oh, well.
Like
Not on my Kickstarter, unfortunately.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, the Kickstarter is doing really well. We are actually, I believe, 4 backers away from our next backer goal, and only about $51 from our next stretch, or from our first stretch goal. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, you're almost to 50 backers. That's cool.
Almost, which is why I'll be buying some labels.
Yeah.
Right.
Sponsored by Avery Labels.
There you go.
That's right.
You know what?
This podcast is brought to you by.
Buy the generic Amazon ones. They're the same size and they're like half the price. That's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyron's. I also have a Facebook group called the Rowdy Roats fan page or something like that Kyron started up for me. So if you guys are interested in joining my little fan club, feel free to look it up on Facebook. Hey, Jack.
Right on. Do we get like cool cat memes and stuff if we join that group? Because I'm about that.
Really, I'm gonna lie. It's kind of a quiet group. We mostly post when we have things projects that are coming up.
Gotcha.
And everybody's welcome to post their projects in the group.
Sweet.
Don't make it your personal like Kickstarter graveyard, but pay Kyron. Yeah, Kyron's my other admin, so if you pay him $5 and you can join. But I tell you what, you back the Kickstarter, we'll waive that fee.
Yeah, back everybody's Kickstarter here.
That's right. Anybody's Kickstarter. If you can show me you backed any of the Kickstarters, we'll waive the $5 entrance fee.
Right on.
So
well, I just backed Dustin. I was gonna say I just backed Dustin's and JD's.
Thanks.
Because I haven't done it yet.
There you go.
I backed Katrina's when it first started, though. So
that's true. He did. Yeah.
I'm going to say this in response to that. I've heard incredible things about Confidence, so that is my guilty pleasure that I'm going to end up backing before the end of this. So I like the concept. I was a huge fan of like Fifth Element and stuff. So the idea of being on a luxury space cruise liner where you're trying to jack stuff from people is very interesting to me.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Honestly, it was supposed to be Ocean's 11 in space.
Right.
Was sort of my idea, but it's not quite that complex of a character study and plot study. But because it's only one book. But yeah, Fifth Element has always been one of those visual things that just blew me away. So
is that the Kickstarter you got, Todd? That's the new one you got going? Yeah. Okay. Nice.
I can actually answer that question that he just asked. I think it's the most unusual reward so far that I've gotten from Dustin was soap.
Oh, okay.
I think it smells really good. My girlfriend doesn't think so. I got it in the mail, and then like the mailman was talking to me about comics or whatever, and he's like, "This smells different." I'm like, "Yeah,
It doesn't smell like comics.
yeah." My whole apartment just smelled like the whiskey soap, and I'm like, "This." I actually feel clean when I feel like
Nice. Gotta get me some.
Right. It was a really interesting concept because when they came, like when we were doing the listener when winds weep, it was like, what can we do to? You always want to stand out, right? You want to be remembered, you know, especially when you're putting out a book every month. You know what I'm saying? People have got to remember who you are as a writer or whatever. And I was like, man, what can we do? And my buddy sent me this ad, and he was like, these guys make soap. And I was like, okay, it's soap, right? But it was like how to break that third wall again, or the fourth wall. How do you get past that with people? Like me, I like to sit and I like to drink just a really nice drink when I'm sitting and reading a book. I put the kids out, you know, they're not allowed in the office if I'm hanging out and trying to study or write or whatever else. And it was like, man, what else brings you into this? Because not everybody drinks, you know what I'm saying? So what can bring you into it? And I was like, man, smell is such a big thing because we write about PTSD a lot, you know, and where that takes you. Well, smells and music do the same type of thing for people, you know? So I was like, man, if we could come up with a smell that was just like what I imagined our book would be like, it would be like whiskey and, you know, gunpowder. And that was, you know, that was where it went. So yeah. It came out really good. Like your book now, you know, you feel clean when you watch with it. Like it's not like when you're like, you know, they got that. What is that? The dude that jokes about having like the musty balls thing. You see it on the internet all the time. The Sasquatch soap or whatever, right? So it's like, man, that's not a joke. I seriously thought all that was a joke. You know, they're like, oh yeah, this, you know, the liquid soap isn't good for your body and whatnot. So I researched it and I was like, holy cow, I can send people something that's actually good for them and it's interesting. So yeah, you know,
gotta get me some.
It's vegan. I don't know why they said that. Like, I'm not gonna eat the soap. But...
it's whiskey.
You never know. Somebody might.
Hey man, you just don't want to drive down the road after you've washed with it and get pulled over. Great.
Yeah.
You should sell that at cons because I've heard that people are smelly there.
I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. So
imagine you get pulled over and you smell like whiskey. Sorry, officer, it's just my soap.
That's right.
All right, sir, come out of the vehicle. You're coming with me.
We'll take that sobriety test real quick. I'm sure I can do it. I can't do the alphabet backwards, I don't think, but it'll be all right.
Can anybody?
I don't know, man.
No.
Why?
Z, Y, X?
Yeah. That's
W?
not great.
I had a fan last night who actually added a stretch goal for me to my campaign.
Wow.
Apparently, if I hit $10,000, I'm getting a new kitten.
Oh,
that's cool.
I was going to joke about if you hit a certain stretch goal, you mail a cat to everybody.
I just mail. I've got 5, so the top 5 backers are going to get a cat.
Just that's too much. Just a piece of a cat.
That
would be better.
I'll take little snippets of hair off.
Yes, just hair.
Yeah, hair.
Yeah.
Hairball. Yeah. That's what I meant.
Put it in a little satchel, and you know.
Here's the ear. No.
You thought
this is a kid's book, guys.
I think I got PETA on speed dial.
Yeah, seriously. Have you seen this Kickstarter?
So Todd Rainer has joined us.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little late. The other one, I was going to do it at 2:00, and then he did it at 11. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And then everybody here can.
Once you start talking, the time flies, right?
Yeah. So yours isn't live yet, but I put the link in the comments.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah. So what's your elevator pitch for Ice Pick?
Elevator pitch. What is that? I'm just playing a creator, artist guy, writer thing. I don't, it's a kind of a throwback to 90s superheroes. It's a lot of influence from the early 90s Image stuff, Spawn, Batman, that kind of. It's a darker book. It's basically about the story of a guy. His parents were killed. He was left for dead. And the story, issue 1, starts out where he is trying to find out who killed his parents, who left him for dead. He's got superpowers. He got those in the accident, his attempted murder type of thing, you know, because great superpowers come from medical, you know, scientific accidents. And he's got the power of moisture. He can control moisture. He can, you know, disappear into smoke, make ice stuff out of moisture, you know, ice picks and weapons and whatnot. And it literally kind of issue 1 to issue 4. Issue 4 is launching Friday. It is kind of like the bookend. It's the first major story arc. So he kind of ends up getting taken into the 9th circle of hell. So there's a supernatural element. Fiance thinks he's dead. His best friend is helping him figure out how he's got these powers. And yeah, it's, if you like 90s superhero, hopefully you dig this. It's a lot of fun.
So I have one question about
that's what he looks like.
Awesome character, right? So we've all talked, you know, in the past, and you know, everybody's talked about the meta level abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the end all be all abilities. Well, someone that can control moisture, I mean, our whole body can with moisture, right? Yeah. So if you just wanted to be the dude that just walks around just like ripping the moisture out of people, I'm not trying to be. I'm being dead serious. If he was that guy, if the character is there, what kind of personality does he have? What keeps him? I'm curious. You know, what keeps him from being that guy?
So it has a lot to do with, and I haven't really touched on, the origin is there, and you know, I do have a origin issue planned, but it comes down to the kind of person you are, and it's almost like that whole Thor thing. You know, you're not worthy to pick up the hammer. Okay, it's also the whole Captain America thing, which I really liked what they did in the movie, the first movie, is that, you know, let's pick someone that's worthy, not someone that's strong and fast and all these things, because your intentions is what matters. And, you know, Ice Pick, his intentions of who he was before this happened means a lot. And it means he's not that ravenous, crazy person like Magneto, you know, taking everyone, killing everyone. He's goal-oriented. It's who killed my parents, who tried to kill me, and I want to get back. It's, in a way, it's a weird love story, because it's, I want to get back to my fiance. I want to get back to the life I had. And it's not, it's dark in some of the aspects, but it's also kind of a happy story where it's just all, it's a love story. It's a, you know, superhero crazy, and you know, I pull like Dante's Inferno influences, and I love the supernatural kind of stuff. So you have like demons and all kinds of craziness. I mean, it's just really.
I'm trying to get you down that path of craziness. You know what I mean? I just find it interesting. Where as a writer, I find your people's influence is interesting. You know, and I do like 3 shows of my own a week, so I can't help but ask questions every now and then. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
You know, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's taken me years because I do this book by myself. I'm writing, drawing, coloring, lettering, publishing. I mean, the whole thing. So issue 4 is like the closure of this major story arc, and then I have other things planned after that. Sweet. I'm actually going to get an art team so that I can actually produce stuff on a regular basis.
Right on. Right on.
That was my goal last year, was to get like teams for certain books, and then now my team is Adam Fields and my colorist that I'm using for everything, Fibri, or however you say his name. He's from Indonesia.
Yeah.
And Jerome Gagnon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's my team.
Adam's a beast, man. He's been on my cover since my first book, so I'm really excited to see him work with you. You know, I'm really excited to see Scales. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't wait to print it.
I'm super stoked about that, because
I just want the Seer Chronicles to be like finished, so I can.
Right. Well, I can imagine.
I'm so sorry to like people. Like, I just sent like 1 million emails to like everybody that backed that Kickstarter from like last year, and I'm like, I definitely know that I made a mistake of doing that Kickstarter way before. I didn't know the workload that Dan had, so definitely get that. So that's why Adam Fields is like fast. He's absolutely got, like ink was like 20 pages, but like he got that done like pretty quick. So
right. Well, you know, he just did like, what do you do, 85 sketch covers and like weeks? Like you know, you're muted.
You're muted.
Well, God, you should be listening to what I'm saying anyway. No, it's funny. Adam lives by me, and he actually I put out an anthology of because I'm in Ohio, and I put out an anthology a few years back of Ohio-based creators, and I got Adam on board, and that's how I met him. And so yeah, he's a good dude. I see him at shows and such around my area.
Are you from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm from Akron.
Oh, yeah, me and my wife originally from Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just south. Yeah.
I went to Canton a month ago.
Yeah, I remember when you mentioned that.
You're not missing much.
Where'd you end up eating?
We went. Oh my gosh. We didn't go to the one place because everybody said it was in the neighborhood had gone downhill.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, well, we're not
Canton.
gonna go. We're not gonna go there then. We found a place. What was it called? Bubba's. Is that the name of it?
Can't say I'm familiar.
Really good food.
Oh, good.
We discovered a ice cream place that had boozy milkshakes, so that was awesome.
Ooh.
My oldest is already talking about we need to go back just for the food that we found.
Well, I mean, geez, go to Cleveland then. Way better things up north.
There's some good food there.
Yeah. Anyway, we can
Yeah. I'm not from Ohio, guys.
I could sidetrack everyone for a while. Yeah, I've lived in the same 10-mile square radius of my entire life. So
oh man, I wouldn't even.
It's not.
I couldn't even live like that, man. I've been, bro, and it's wild, right? Because we start seeing creators from all over the world, and it's like, hey, I've been there. Hey, I've been there. I've never been here. And it's really cool like that. My whole team, there's only 4 out of the 20 people that work with me that live in the U.S. So it's really
my whole art team lives in Chile. So.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, power of the internet, man.
Tell me about it. I mean, that, and thank you, Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a bad world without it.
Yes, not so much thank you, Dropbox, because I don't want to pay for you.
Right.
But and a comic turns out to just be big enough by the time it's all said and done to not quite fit on the free account.
Oh man, I wouldn't even know what to do. I've got 3 books going right now, plus a novel, plus a tabletop game, and I'm just and you're getting TIFF files left and right, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Could you put that in the drive so the rest of the team can grab it? Oh, that's really cute. Oh, better update my drive. You know what I mean? Because now there's 18 people using the same drive, and they're looking at things and they're going, hey, look, this is great. Hey, look, I just updated some text in this one. Can we move that to the printable folder? And it's like, okay, sweet. I'm just going to give you guys all access, and you can move things around. And then right before I'm ready to print, I'll go look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 100 terabytes on Google Drive or something like that.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
I'm using 50 of that, and most is because of podcast episodes. I do too many podcasts.
You've got multiple books going right now, don't you? Don't you have
there's that. Then there's scripts that I wrote, and then there's old scripts that I wrote, and I found because I wrote the second script for our video game already.
I'm excited about that, man. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
You were like, it's going to be in October this year, and I'm like, what? That's awesome. I mean, that's incredible because the guys that did Suikoden from when we were kids have come back and are doing Frog and Hare is the name of the company that they came out with, if I'm not mistaken. But they're doing a new game, and they got a $8 million Kickstarter. Something like that. Game. And they're like, hey, we'll see you guys in 2 years. You know what I mean? And it's 2 years, $8 million. What? Yeah. So really cool stuff coming out of video games and Kickstarter right now. I mean, that's an awesome way to, and for artists as well, because it's not just your video game artists anymore and your video game companies. You're looking at character design artists from all over the world and all different types of aspects. So it's a really cool thing. Kickstarter is great. I hope we don't lose Kickstarter because people are taking advantage of this. Put a bid in for $2,000 on Kickstarter every time. Like me. But to be fair, I don't make much more than that on Kickstarter right now. So
I haven't made a profit off of Kickstarter yet. That's why it's funny when the one that I'm helping right now, like promoting Heavens Decoded.
Yeah.
Everybody should go back.
Well, see, I haven't. It's $6,000 per book for me. You know what I mean? I've not made a profit yet. I broke even on the listener like a month ago, and that came out in November. You know what I'm saying? But it's like you look at things like that, and like when you started putting out books, and that's how you have to weigh your successes. Not like, did I make enough this month or did I make enough next month? It's how long have you been putting these out? Because indie's very different than owning a comic shop, because I can buy Marvel books and when they come out, they're really hot, right? But 2 months down the road, very few people are buying the same book that came out when it first came out, versus indie books trend in a higher way as they go further. It's like they have more faith in the producers and the creators than they did originally, because now they're like, oh, the book's solid, it'll stay.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we've all backed those #1 issue Kickstarters for an indie book, and
for sure,
that was it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great point, because the last guy I was talking with, he was asking about, he went on Kickstarter, was looking for anything else that I'd done, and I kind of had a canceled campaign for issue 2, ended up being on Indiegogo. But it was, I ended up talking a lot about how I just didn't feel I had the support as a indie creator on Kickstarter to do a good campaign, and now that I'm issue 4, it's kind of humbling and just shocking as an individual creator. I don't have an art team, and there's, a ton of people interested, and it's more than I've ever seen. But you're right. It's that trending where they're seeing like, oh, you did issue 1. Oh, here's issue 2. Here's issue 3. Oh, now here's issue 4. And it's like, that's where the snowball really starts to grow.
That's exciting to even hear from people that have been doing it for longer than myself. You know what I'm saying? Like we're thankful, all our Kickstarters have been successful, but it's not like it's been like massive margins. You know what I'm saying? It was like, hey, we hit goal and we got a couple $100 after that. You know what I mean? That, and that's cool, and that takes us to a realm of, not complacency, but at least like we have a little bit more confidence than we would have had they not met goal. The percentage of people that don't make goal is so much higher if you actually go and pay attention to it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that don't make goal. So it's awesome to see people, and to be in a room. The first time I did a show with Greg, I was in a room of people that had not done Kickstarter, like had not succeeded. So I was in the room and I was like, whoa, you know what I mean?
I wonder what the percentage. I mean, I get that, the percentage of people who succeed or fail at Kickstarter. But a lot of those ones that fail, like, you go on there and, they have like $80, like 30, 29 days in, and you're like, I've never heard of this thing.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder what the actual like numbers are for people who are trying, for people who are like me, like I'm not even halfway funded and I only have 11 days left. And I set a really high goal, and that was very stupid of me in the beginning. But, I wonder what the, I'm pushing as hard as I can every day. So I just wonder what I guess rambling thought here is I just don't ever like the Kickstarters I see continuously over and over again that are being, in my face on my, feed and everything. I feel like all of them end up getting funded. Like I don't see too many that don't, for people who actually put the effort in.
It has to do with your who you surround yourself with. And I'm not trying to say that other people are not worthy of being surrounded by you, but it's who you like. It's just like anything else in this world, right? If you want to succeed, put yourself around successful people. And I get that we all see each other's campaigns. Jim Noble and I were talking about that the other night. It was like we all see each other's stuff, but at the same time, most of us will go out and support one another. And that's what creates this effect of being able to reach your goals, as long as they're not lofty goals, like they're not insane goals. Most of the time, it's your buddies that'll come in and go, "Hey, look, we love the artwork. This looks great, or it's going to be fun." So we all come in and we fund your books. You know what I mean? Because we appreciate the fact that you're doing the same thing we're doing. Like me, it's a full-time job for me. You know what I mean? All these guys get paid before the book comes out. I'm the one that is in the hole at the end of it but I have faith in my product. You know what I'm saying? So like with me, I did better with my books after my Kickstarters, you know, from my Shopify account or from shows we're doing. And thank God shows are starting again. You know what I mean? But it's like, I've done better after Kickstarter, you know, but my first one, oh my God, I thought I was going to have a coronary. It was $2,400 the first time I did a Kickstarter. That was my goal. Nowhere near what I needed to make to put the book out, but it was already done, so I wasn't worried about it, right? So I'm like, oh, $400. The end of the wire, I hit the 2,400. I hit like 2,600 is what came out, and it was like this time I made 1,500 in a day and a half, and I got stuck at like 1,500. Oh, it's Chuck. So,
what up?
No, you brought in the competition. What are you doing?
This is a one editor kind of podcast.
Come on. I'm working here.
There's competition?
Oh, God.
Not really, no.
So, but
we covered that earlier.
Todd, you know, there's a lot to be said about the fact that if you surround yourself by like-minded individuals, they'll support you versus going out. And I'm not saying don't push in places you're not you know, aware of or you're not, you know, known in. But, you know, putting yourself around those people means you're going to see their successful campaigns. You know, like if you go into like the groups, the comic creator groups and stuff like that, and you'll look around, most of those guys, if they don't fund, they take their stuff off those pages. They don't even want people to know they didn't fund. That's why you don't see it a lot of places, you know, because I don't know about you, but it would hurt my feelings. Like as a creator, I'm not trying to sound like a bitch or anything, but it would hurt my feelings. It would literally be like, man, that really sucked. I put my time and my heart and, you know, and Chuck can attest to it. I gave it all I got. And if I gave it all I got and it didn't work, I would be bummed out, right? You know what I mean? So I wouldn't want people to see my failures. What I would want was people to see what I accomplished, you know, what I did well. So those were the things I would show people. I wouldn't put a link up anymore. I'd take all the links down and I'd show you the beautiful art or I'd show you pieces of the story, snippets and stuff to get your attention and prepare for the next one, you know?
Right. No, I was more saying like when you go on actual Kickstarter though, because they leave, you know, that stuff all stays up on there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
that's kind of what
You know what though? It's funny. A lot of people worry about the failure thing. Like, how will I look? How will everything look? But I gotta tell you guys, people are actually really well. Yeah, people are actually really okay with it. Like they're actually very supportive. And one thing I will tell people is, if it looks like your Kickstarter is gonna fail, let it and just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is first off, people really appreciate that you pushed and tried to the very end. They really will get beyond that, even if it's like, dude, there's no way they're gonna do it. But you keep pushing, they're gonna appreciate it. But also, what it means is that you still have access to that backer list. So when you go to do the next one, you just tell them, hey guys, so here's what I've done. I'm really excited to do this Kickstarter over again, because I've been a part of Kickstarters that have failed before. I've obviously been on books that haven't gone, and usually the second one, you've thought about it more. You've had a chance to kind of set up a new plan and understand. You know, sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's just your goal was unreasonable. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't a fair goal for yourself. Yes, Todd.
My goal.
He's agreeing with you.
Yeah,
saying his goal is unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, I work with Todd on Confidence, which, by the way, guys, is a great book. I had a blast reading that book and being a part of it. 4,000 is not easy on your first one. So I obviously hope you make it, and we're gonna push and see what we can. But if you have to do it again, you're just like, okay, cool. Let's look again. Let's see what we can hit, and do it again. And honestly, I believe you'll hit it. No problem.
Yeah. And that's what happened with like issue 2 for me. Like I had an $800 goal and I couldn't do 800. You know, and it was. I feel it was because there just wasn't enough there. There wasn't enough social media presence. There wasn't enough support. There wasn't enough fans. You know, so I let it fail. I don't have a problem with that. Like, to me, it shows I'm human. It shows that, you know, things don't always go the way you want them to, you know, and then I kind of reassessed things, went over to Indiegogo and was able to make things happen. So I don't know. And those two platforms are uniquely different. You know, you'll find success on one where you find zero success on the other. So, it's interesting,
Yeah. I think that for me, I failed my very first one for Crossbones, and I was like super new to the indie scene. I mean, I made a book with a guy I met on Facebook, and I just threw it on Kickstarter, just expecting, and I think that's the expectation that people have, like me, at that point in my life, where it's like, I'm just going to put it on there, and people are just going to automatically gravitate to it, and that's like I think that a lot of newbies fall into that, because
See, where
I think it's
like,
cool. Other people are going to think it's cool,
I had like the opposite mindset.
Yeah.
My mindset was, okay, I'm going to put it up there, and it's going to be totally ignored. And luckily, knock on wood, that has not been the case. But I was sure I would get like 5 pity pledges, and that was going to be the end of it.
Yeah. And then with mine, I failed, and I had a goal of like 1,000. I think I made barely more than like 100, with like 3 backers or something like that. It was pretty humiliating. And I'm not going to lie, like you guys said, it's like, that kind of stings, but, luckily I persevered, and it kind of goes back to that, thing where you guys were talking about tracking upwards, and, with the second one I ran, same goal, like $1,000, and we just hit $1,000. And with the third one, we hit like 16. And now with this one, hopefully we keep on going, but, with it comes experience, and with, confidence in yourself and in your product, with the first one that I failed, and it was a pretty big blow to my confidence. Like, should I continue to do this? But, luckily I did. And, luckily we have kind of a following, and so that's what it's all about, is just doing what you want to do. For me, this is what I love to do, and I'm going to do it regardless of what people think, and so I think that's what it's ultimately about, is just doing it, and hopefully, people like it too. I don't know.
The funny thing about failure is that it's great if you're willing to use it as a teachable moment.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you fail and you just are like, oh, fuck the world, this is bullshit, blah, blah, and you just snap, then you know what, man, maybe you can't handle anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But like, so I to take us away from comics, I'm a big poker player, love playing poker, and one of our sayings always is, you don't learn anything from the hands you win. Always lose it from the hands you always learn from the hands you lose.
Yeah.
Because if you win, luck is involved in all this other stuff. But if you won, luck may have had a big deal to do with that, but there's a lot of other things that could have been in there too. What did I do at different moments? What was I thinking? All that kind of stuff. And so, by looking at our losses and really being able to determine, what did I do to help with that loss? Because obviously there's other things that could have happened. Like, what if you launched right before the pandemic had started?
Yeah.
And then, there was some where that happened, and that's something. And so it's like, okay, cool, I have to try again. But what things did I do wrong that went along with that might have also affected that? And so you can still, even from moments like that, even, in the middle of a hurricane, there might have been something you did wrong. Learn from it. And fail upwards.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm one of those guys. I'm like really selfish when it comes to, I'm doing my book for me. Like I love that. I'm super appreciative. I love all the support. But at the end of the day, like, I'll still make this book if only one person read it. Yeah. If my wife read it and she's like, "Oh, that was cool. All right, yay, I succeeded." Yeah. I mean, my kids like it. Fine, awesome. But to go to the shows when I started doing this, and you would see the support at shows. Like, I can't wait. I got a show next month, and I can't wait to get back into doing these shows. And I only do a few local to Seattle, but still, like 3 or 4 a year. I mean, that's a huge thing to get out there and talk to the people and show them what you're doing. And that really garnishes a lot of support for Kickstarters and for properties and things like that. So, I just keep being stubborn and selfish, and I'd be drawing anyways. I'd be doing stuff regardless. So why not throw it up on Kickstarter? And if it happens, it happens.
I have so many stories that and I have technically one true fan for Ink, because Travis just doesn't stop tagging.
I'm a fan.
Shut up about that, does he? No.
So he's like, "This isn't Ink." And I was like, "Dude, I'm working on like 5 other things. Like, chill." So it's actually really cool to see that. But I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't think like a 20-page comic book. It's not even a full comic book. Was gonna like connect to somebody that like impactful. That's like awesome.
Yeah, it's a great feeling.
I have that one true fan. She's about 9 years old. She's the daughter of a friend, my sister's friend from high school, and she's so in love with what I write. She like goes to school. She does like virtual schooling, and she tells everybody about the latest story that she got to read. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't ever like make it bigger than that, I don't even care.
Yeah,
because it's so her thing, and
you made an impact.
Yeah,
she wants to. She wants to write her own books now, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. I'm done.
That's nice.
I had a guy at a con a couple years ago when we were doing them. He said, "I want to cosplay as Ice Pick." I'm like, "Dude, do it! Like that'd be crazy. I'd love to see it. You know?
That's a high
Light it
honor,
up, bro. Like, let's go."
Huge.
So that's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm waiting for is like somebody to cosplay as one of my characters.
I'll
I
do
think
it.
it would be kind of hard to do just because
Here, I got ink. There. I'm cosplaying.
Yeah, there you go. I got it.
There you go.
For scales, you just got to be rich. No, just be a rich kid.
Oh yeah.
Pretty
I'll work on that for you, Greg.
There you go.
Right? Trying.
Well, I mean, and we each do it. Like, Todd mentioned his motivations behind things, and I think that there's everyone has that, right? You all have your private push behind everything you do. You know what I'm saying? It's a full-time job for me, so I'm like, when a failure to me, if you ask like Chuck, is if I do something wrong and I catch it. That's my failure. That's where I have to. I better myself by knowing the small details with anything I do. You know what I'm saying? So if Buddy's like, hey, look, I really like this, but then somebody comes out and says, I don't like this. It's like, okay, well, what have I failed to reach you with? What have I done that didn't reach you as a person?
Well, that would drive me nuts.
Well, and it can, you know what I'm saying? But it's different types of motivations and different pushes. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I do it because I'm like, okay, well, I've been selling comic books for almost 20 years. You know what I mean? So that you look at this fact where it's like, okay, I know what certain people like. I know what certain, demographics gravitate toward. The Listener was a very personal project, and it was very deep and emotional to me. Whereas my newer IPs are like, okay, they're fun. You know what I mean? They're interesting, and they can gravitate toward different types of people. Greed is fun because if you were an 80s kid, who didn't like Little Monsters? You know what I'm saying? Like it was a great movie. It was a fun thing going on. Fred Savage was great even at that age point in time, and Howie Mandel was just phenomenal to me when I was a kid.
How have you never mentioned My Pet Monster, though, when talking about that? Because that was a great show, dude.
So I just saw one. Actually saw two of them at the ICC show I was just at last month. Dude had one over here and one over here on his booth. And I was like, I remember having them with like the orange manacles on them. The big old orange manacles. I was like, I had a fan reach out like 3 days ago and was like, speaking of My Pet Monster, he was like, you need to make a doll for Cade. And I was like, that'd be awesome. But I was looking at minifigs I was looking at minifigs like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, $2,000 molds and $3,000 molds, and man, that's half a comic book. You know what I mean? So, maybe one of these days when I'm not breaking, and I'm thankful. Don't get me wrong when I say things like this. When I'm not breaking even, then I'll push into those types of markets and push into those other things. But it's interesting the things that people bring out, like Brian Silverback, awesome stuff. He makes those like wrestling dolls that he's got coming out. I mean, those things are awesome, and I'm all about that kind of thing. I'd love to do something like that eventually, but like I said, I'm still a new kid on the block for a little bit. So once I get out there a little bit further, I'll branch into those things.
Yeah,
The editor is fighting right now.
Here we go. No, no. I had somebody when my first book release. This is only my second book, and my first book released. It was Tales from the Toy Store, and so it was all about stuffed animals and their lives in the toy store. And I had somebody go, when are you coming out with a toy line? I was like, first book, guys. First book.
Yeah, there was.
And I said, and these are actually based on real toys that my kids and stuff had when they were little.
Oh, okay.
I said, so copyright issue. I can't just go around stealing like actual toy designs.
There was a guy that wanted custom Funko Pop character for one of my reward tiers on Ice Pick. I'm like, I looked into it. I found a guy that does it, but it's like $200, $170 or something. It's like there's no way someone would spend. I mean, I'd have to make it for at least $225, $250 for that tier. It would look cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it'd be awesome, and I may do one just personally for myself. But I mean, he does the 3D molding. So there's a market, but it's an expensive market to dive into.
Yeah.
There's actually a really cool tier for Covenant Comics. Yeah. Oh, he's gonna show.
Show and tell.
So this is what we offered for the third issue Kickstarter. They're all handmade, and we found a guy, or I found a guy on Instagram. His name is Stanfield Toys, and so yeah, he makes these toys. It's interesting. You find all these intricate communities just doing things like the things that you love. And there's a whole community of people that just make toys. And I hit this guy up. And so, yeah, I was like, can you make a toy of Crossbones? And he did. And so for this Kickstarter, we're actually doing a 2-pack of Crossbones and his, new antagonist for this issue, Sicario. And so I'm super excited. Greg's actually getting one. So
is it like a garage kit? Is it like a bash kit there?
It's like he hand molds them and everything.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Dude, take my money. Just take my money. I'm doing it. I want that 2-pack now.
I see that. Cool. Like the kits, like a bash kit. What we will call a bash kit is when you would take an action figure and you had a figure you wanted, right? Like a hero that you wanted to make. You didn't see, wasn't getting produced or anything, and these cats go and they beat up other figures to get the parts to make the figure you would like to see.
Yeah, I think that's what he does, and I like
awesome.
it. Cool.
It's super cool, man. It's a super cool concept. So good on you.
I was gonna actually do it for our horror anthology.
Do it. It's great. I don't
know if we're doing that or not. We were gonna do a motion comic, but Hector said no to that. Instead, we're doing a match game, kind of like Candy Crush, but it's
cool.
like the antagonist of the horror anthology. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what though? There's nothing like, of course, all the trinkets and stuff are a lot of fun, but there's also nothing against really paring down. Like in Belial 1, we had a bunch of fun stuff that we were trying to throw in there, and then for 2, one had been like, so we scraped by on that campaign. We just barely funded, and so we really kind of went, man, both of us are poor as shit. What are we going to do to try to make this happen? And so instead we put a lot of money into I wanted to basically calling it moneyballing comics. Basically, I wanted to find specific like cover artists that I knew pushed books and would be helpful and also really work with what we're doing. And also, when they did something, I wanted it to kind of speak to other things and really kind of be able to get other people excited about us. So instead of, bringing in like toys and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just because we didn't have the money for it, we did things like we had Thomas Tenney come in, and Thomas Tenney has worked with a lot of rock and metal bands and whatnot. And also he's been with Marvel Comics, and so there was a lot there. So we had him do a Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell cover. Wow. And so he did that, and that was a lot of fun. And we put that up on a lot of like Meatloaf sites and showed that off to Meatloaf fans on Twitter and tagged him and did all that kind of stuff. And then, we brought Steph Wilson in, who just has his own incredibly stupid group of people who just love what he does. And I mean stupid in the best way. Like, I love Steph. Steph and I are so tight. He's definitely one of my dudes. And I brought him in, and he was just absolutely amazing and pushed the book so hard. And just everybody we kind of brought in, it was just because we knew that they would definitely help. And the difference between Belial 1 and Belial 2 is ridiculous. Like, we broke every single one of the numbers. What's up, Mike? We broke all the numbers. We broke everything on there. And it was just because we really tried to look at, like, what works and kind of how can we pare this down and still offer a lot of stuff. And so, you know, it worked out.
It's interesting you brought that up. I'm talking with a local publisher out here to hopefully kind of get from the publisher I'm with over to a new publisher, like an actual legit publisher, not self-publishing. And, you know, we've had that conversation about what to include on Kickstarter. And, you know, he brought up an interesting point is, I mean, he's had a few Kickstarters funded, so he's kind of in that realm in Indiegogo. He said there's artists out there, cover artists, that's their following. So if you want a successful Kickstarter, Steph Wilson's one of them. And when you brought up Steph Wilson, it made me think about this, like, get those artists. Yeah, you know, I mean, their style is going to fit with pretty much whatever you're doing. And he's like, those artists have such a huge following on Kickstarter. They back whatever that artist does. And I mean, it is kind of Moneyball in a way where you're using what people are going to support, you know, you're getting those people involved that will have that support, you know, that fan base.
I mean, we brought in all, like, if you look at my campaigns and you look at the people that are on my covers and stuff, I didn't bring in anybody that nobody didn't know.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, you know, and it was like even people that we brought in that huge amounts of people didn't know, they were still friends of ours that were known in the community.
Right.
You know what I mean, like my first book, you know, Mike DeBalto was one of the people that told me I should write a book. You know what I mean? So I brought him on it, which in turn he brought Marissa Pope onto it. You know what I mean? And that was like, okay, well, now we've got names behind this book.
Right.
You know? When the second book came out, it was like, we're going to continue to bring names to the second book. The third book came out. Greed is, you know, it's, even though it's an offshoot of a book, still it's its own IP, you know? So we brought in Frank Forty, we brought in Rich Parada, you know what I mean? We brought in a bunch of, you know, David Acampo came over from The Listener to work on it, you know, and even like Manny came from, you know, Mojo, you know, and Mojo has its own fan base going on and stuff like that. It's very important to bring in people. It's not enough just to bring in folks that you like, you know what I'm saying? You have to bring in people that can bring their own following. Just like Chuck said, there's no point in, it's money, right? Like I most of my cover artists are $350 and higher per cover. So it's like, but they bring that level of professionalism with them. You know,
Yeah.
they talk about our books. You know, they mention, you know, we're going to be like, I'm at Suncoast Comic-Con at the end of the month. There are 3 other people that have worked on my books that are going to be at that show, and all of them are talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the coolest thing about Marissa is she's a good friend of mine. She's a great friend of many of my friends. On her, when you look down at her profile, it has, hey, look, I worked on Dustin Burnell's books. And that may not mean a lot to certain people, but if people are looking at cons, now they're going, where can I talk to Dustin Burnell to get a copy of his book to get Marissa to sign it?
Yeah.
And all those little nuances are what you gain from people. You know, you bring these folks. Rich is great. Rich tags me in everything under the sun that he does. You know what I mean? Like everything under the sun that he works on. And at the same time, though, he also goes, hey, look, I worked on a cover for Dustin. You know, you should check out the cover that I did for him. You know, in April, you guys are seeing a ton of April stuff right now because it's Mermaid. She's really excited. She's got her own Rising Tides out right now, which is a phenomenal book in itself on Kickstarter. Awesome art book. She just did a cool crossover with my book. But stuff like that's important because these people, they give a shit about their team.
Yeah.
That's what you have to find. A contractor, that's great. You know what I mean? A contractor's great. But people that want to work with you to better themselves and to better your product is who you want to work with. I've heard Chuck say numerous times, I bring the best out of people. That's my job, to bring the best out of other people. And I think that's the most epic line because you should find a whole team like that. Not just your editor, but your artist. They should put in input. if something's not going to look great, you don't want a guy that's just going to let it go. You know, you told him to do it, he's putting it out there. You know what I mean? You don't want that. You want a guy that's going to be like, hey, man, it may look a little bit better if we do it like this. And he's not trying to step on your toes, or she's not trying to step on your toes. They're just being honest. Hey, look, I think this is a little bit better. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I think my experience may help a little bit in this, particular area that we're working on. And it's worth your money. And you mentioned the word, money, money balling, whatever. But I'll say this: scared money doesn't make money. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
It's a business. It's a straight business, and that's what I've learned is you really have to treat it that way. You want to have successful Kickstarters, you better be willing to spend a little up front and get those people that are gonna, like you mentioned, Dustin, bring something to the table. Not just, and I'm guilty because I'm a fan first. Like, I love artwork, and I would hire someone just because I like their artwork. My buddy did a 3D cover. No one knew who the hell he was, but it was an awesome 3D cover with 3D glasses, and it works. Like, it's a really cool thing. And that's the most book I've sold. But no one knows. They bought it because it was gimmick, right? I mean, that's the whole gimmick cover thing. But I'm learning that you got to bring people involved. You got to treat Kickstarters as a business.
Even as a gimmick, though, you paid more for the 3D effect. Yeah. That's the same concept.
No, I did it myself. Like, I literally, I spent a little bit of time in Photoshop and made the 3D effect and did it all myself and had glasses, and I was like editing with the glasses on to make sure it worked.
But that's time.
You had a time investment.
It is, exactly.
So just like your glow-in-the-dark covers, anything like that, or your covers where you're cutting out imagery. We bought a what is that? A Cricut. Just to be able to go when we decide we want to do these covers with cutouts, we'll be able to do it because we bought the Cricut. We took the Cricut classes to learn how to do it ourselves. I'm not going to try to get my printer to do it. Love my printer, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that's a lot of work. He's got to come up with a way to cut these out. Nobody wants that stuff. So you start thinking about your time you're putting into it, and that's also valuable. Every minute you spend on your project is valuable. You can be that guy that doesn't touch it, or you could be the guy that's like, hey, look, you put your family aside for a week at a time, a month, and you do real boy work. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's a full-time job for me. So, I'm like, hey, look, I need all this time. I sell comic books and I write comic books. That's what I do. So I need all this time in this period to this period to work on things. And then I put myself ahead, months and months ahead, so I have time to go back and look at things or be able to change things or work on stuff. Because like I said, if you look at my books, I drop a book a month. So it's literally like I have an X amount of time period I have to work on each project. So if I get ahead, then I'm okay. Unless Chuck comes back and tells me something is not right, and then I got to fix it. And I will fix it. And in the fun thing working with Chuck and the fun thing working with Phil is both those guys are really honest. You know what I mean? But they're also there to make the product better. I saw a comment on a post earlier today about what is an editor. It was actually Brian Silverback's post. What does an editor actually do for you? You know what I mean? And I thought it was amazing. All these different editors that I didn't even know existed for the most part, with the exception of a handful of them, come out and go, yeah, absolutely, Mike. Absolutely. So it's like you see how these guys come out and they're like, hey, look, these are our answers. This is what we think about this. And that gives such a cool thing because the writers, you can go in and look at these answers and you can actually tailor the editor that works for you. You know what I'm saying? And I thought it was the most epic thing because it may not have even been on purpose, but it was one of the coolest things. So, Todd earlier mentioned how he sees things on Facebook. Those little teeny posts can teach you so much. You know what I mean? Like I am a fan of professional letterers. That'll change your game a lot, like immensely change your game. Editors, professional editors. It was my wife and Phil for my first for the last book. And then it was like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I need somebody else as well. It's been doing it a lot longer. You know what I mean? So we bring Chuck in. These are upgrades that you do as you go further. It's not just your book getting more notoriety as you've been around longer. You're gaining. It's like you're leveling up. your skill levels are going up.
It's funny that you mentioned that thread, because there was another editor that I've spoken with before who was a little bothered by something that happened in there, and it is not. This isn't like drama level,
Right.
but there were several people who said editors are there to make sure that your spelling and grammar are right, and one of the editors was obviously. I think a lot of us instantly were like, "Oh, you have no idea what we do." Oh, like we were really bothered.
I thought
And me, I'm like, yes, that is part of what I do.
Well, it certainly is a part of what we do, but it's a part. You know what I mean?
Not the whole thing.
Especially, what's that?
unless you hire me as a proofreader,
Yeah.
that's only part of what I do.
Proofreaders. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. So proofing is important, absolutely. Like it really is. But there's so much more that an editor can do for your book. And this guy was really bothered by it. And I said, "Why are you bothered by this? This guy was never gonna hire you. He has no respect for what we do.
Yeah.
I want someone who is gonna come in, and when I give them my price, which sometimes can sound a little high, they go, okay, cool. I'm willing to put some skin in the game. Let's see what's happening." And now I have to make sure that I deliver to them the amount of money, like more than what they paid. You know what I mean? Like they really need to go, oh, okay, cool. That was worth it. I would have paid more. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was very disappointed in seeing that answer still, because that's something we're trying to teach people and show people that there's editors do so much more than that. But again, those are the people who aren't going to use this anyways. And honestly, I think they're going to have a hard time succeeding.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when I talked about bringing on an actual team for the next kind of phase of books and stuff, editor is one of them. But it's also kind of terrifying, because then I have to change the goal for this for any future Kickstarters. It can't be $700 or $1,000. I mean, it's got to be $3,000, $5,000. You know, editor. I don't know what you think editors cost, but well, not just for editors.
Okay. No. I was going to say, holy cow! How much?
I'm talking.
Who's your editor? Because I want to keep their job. That's a lot of money.
Chuck gave me a discount for some stuff too, so
Yeah.
make sure you.
He's bringing in Jim Shooter, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's going to the top.
Well, I mean, for like the penciler, the inker, colorist, like a whole art team on a book, it's going to be $2,500.
You look at 24 pages, right? And like I said, it's easy to use our own stuff as examples, because that's what we know the most.
Right.
24 pages for me in each of my books ends up being almost $3,000, give or take $100, depending on what team that's working on the book. You know what I'm saying? So that's just interior artwork. All right.
Yeah.
So then you start touching on color, or you start touching on covers. And like I said, almost everybody on my team is $350 covers.
Yeah.
At 8 covers, that's another $2,400, $2,500. Give or take what they're charging me total. Then you turn around and you're like, I need to get a letterer that knows what they're doing, because a letterer can make or break your book. Yeah. So then you're paying another $150 to $200 for a letterer.
It's $70,000.
That easy. And that's what I've always tried to tell people when they come in and they're like, I'm going to make a comic book. I'm like, you have the pockets for a comic.
Are you independently wealthy?
Like, can you do this? Are you able? Yeah. Do you bring a team with you? Do you, like, even if you go to the bank, right? Like right now, I'm dealing with the bank for some a project I'm trying to get on the ground. It will make a lot much easier all around for my lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? But it's like you're having to go, hey, look, this is what I pay my artists every month. This is what we make back every month. You know what I mean? This is the sales after Kickstarter. This is what I'm guaranteed at Kickstarter, so on and so forth. And when you start looking at the money, it gets terrifying. It gets absolutely horrifying, but what you're spending. But you have to spend it to make it. Just like any other business in the world. Like you've got guitars on the wall behind you. You know what I'm saying? I don't know people in my life, and I could be wrong, but I don't know people that have ever bought cheap guitars. I don't know that's a thing. You know what I'm saying? So you can talk about action figures or comic book art or anything else that you buy. As a comic book seller, I have to spend money to make money. You know what I mean? Same thing with anything else. It's just like time. You talked about how you were, I'm going through here and I'm making my own 3D stuff. Cool. That to me is money. You're spending your time to do that. Versus if you're a comic book salesman and you're going to estate sales, or you're going to yard sales, or you're going to, buy bulk lots in a different state. You know what I'm saying? You're spending your time, you're spending your gas. All of these things you have to have a value for. So at the end of the year, when you put all this stuff down on paper, you have some kind of idea of what you're moving into the next year. What's going on? What do I need to spend? How often am I going to have to spend X dollars? Where is my breathing space? Like I've got a trade paperback coming out, and it's in the next 4 months, 5 months, whatever. Chuck and I sit down once we figure out what's going on with this stuff, when we're going to drop it, because that's breathing room. Whether people believe it or not, a trade paperback is breathing room, because we have the art. We have all the art. You know what I'm saying? Now we go in and we put, a thank you page and whatever, and what have you out there. We do a few other things. We do some add-ons to it and whatever. But now you've got a 72-page perfectly bound trade paperback coming out. So that's its own Kickstarter. That's it's a project in itself. And there are plenty of people like just talking about how you build with a Kickstarter. They start following people in Kickstarter. You start getting your dedicated buyers.
Yeah.
So this particular book now has 3 whole books of dedicated buyers behind it that are talking to other people.
Right.
Now, it may cost you a little bit more to print this particular book, but you've already got everything done, right? So now it's just like you're not paying a whole other art team. This is a month that you have that you can make funds with to put toward another breathing setting. You know what I mean? Now you've got time to chill out. Absolutely, Specs. Absolutely. And it's not because you don't have to go out and make a shit ton of money off that Kickstarter. You just the book's done. You know what I'm saying? It's done. Now you're just paying for the printing. You're paying for a little bit of advertising. Your editor's already edited this book. He's already gone through it. So you know what? That's breathing room there. For a guy like me that puts out books the way I do, I have to look at my months. Where's a month for me to put aside money for this? Where's a month for me to put aside money for that? Who's getting paid this month? Who's getting paid this month? How does this work?
The trade is really your chance to make money off of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, after constantly kind of taking loss and loss and loss, then you come into the trade and you're like, okay, and you are going to want to add some shorts and some little things, but really when it's all said and done, it's fairly negligible because you want it to be a slight, at least a different enough product that the people who have bought it are like, crap, I still have to get this too. So you are going to invest a little bit, but maybe you'll invest, I don't know, maybe you'll invest $1,000.
Right.
But when we're talking about a trade, chances are, I mean, the trades are usually between $20 and $40, depending on what you're selling, how big it is and such. So, there's a really good chance for you to finally make some money off of that and really do well for yourself and put money in your pocket, especially moving forward into the next arcs. Right. So, yeah, man, he's totally right there.
Yeah, I already have like a plan for a trade for SeerNova, so it's gonna be like way over 100 pages. Like, wow, a lot.
That's
a graphic novel.
Yeah, that's like Fat Boy book, man. Yeah, you gotta have money for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's like you guys know In Symmetry Creations, right? Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. Dude, their first trade was like 160 pages. It was 11 issues.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Yeah, look at this guy. Oh, yeah, exactly. 11. Their first trade was 11 issues. And I remember talking to him and going, hey, are you gonna do that again? He's like, no, I think our next trade's like 3 or 4 issues. And I was like, yeah, good call. And that's that's learning, that's getting into it. But yeah, absolutely, man.
268 is ball.
268, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
But then again, to be fair, hold on now. So there's a big difference in Matt. So I remember seeing Matt at a show years ago when I wasn't even vending or anything. I remember seeing them have a booth and thinking how cool the concept was of everything going on at this booth, right? So Matt's that exception where it's like he's been doing it for so long that he can be like, I'm going to put out a 268-page trade paperback, and it's going to be awesome. You know what I mean? And that goes hand in hand with that moving up as you've been around. You know, it's notoriety. It's just like how Marvel is, and DC as well, and even Image. You know, when you go, hey, look, we're known more for our publishing than we are for our individual characters, with the exception of Spider-Man, Superman, and a few Punisher, a few other names. You know what I mean? Spawn for Image, and, you know, Savage Dragon, whatever. But there are, you know, they're known more for their publications all across the board than they are for their individual characters, you know, versus indie comics where people are like, you're known. It's you that's known versus your actual product itself, because you're selling yourself. You know, people are like, I'm familiar with this individual. I see this person all over the place. There must be a reason I see this person everywhere. You know, people are interested in them. And that's why when, you know, Chuck, and actually Matt and Chuck both just did an awesome show the other night about how you should market yourself. And, you know, like I said, I've only been doing this for a little while compared to a lot of people, you know, but I listen and I follow these things and I try to learn from all these individuals that have been killing it in this industry. And I say killing it, I mean killing it. You know, like, surround yourself by these guys that are like literally out there busting it. You know, most of the guys that I hang out with personally that are friends of mine are making $20,000, $30,000 Kickstarters. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I don't have aspirations like that for right this second, because that's not me. I'm not there yet. I haven't done my time. But the longer you do it, the better off you'll be. You know, you just have to stick it out, even when it sucks. You know, you'll have naysayers. You know, and you know, taking losses with every issue. Catalyst Comic Studio put it up there. Taking losses with every issue. You know. Oh, what? Hold on now. Oh yeah, absolutely, Matt. Please, man. You know, it's work the work. Absolutely, Mike. But it's something to be said about these guys that have been killing it for a while. It is. You know, it's the drive. You know, as they just posted, it's the drive. It's very important, because if you don't have it, you're not willing to stick through the suck. You know what I mean? Because we all know there's suck. You know, and if you can't stick through it, Chuck said it earlier. Maybe it's not for you. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not. Because there have been days when I was like, you know, I went from a job where I'm making $100,000 a year to learning how each month is going to be with my bills. You know, and that's not to say that my wife doesn't do well, because she does, and you know, that's a whole other animal. But there's a support system in each person's life. You know, use those support systems, better yourselves with them together. But at the end of the month, you still have to pay your bills. And this is one of those industries where sometimes it's going to suck. You know, are you going to be able to go out to dinner to Longhorn this month? You know, maybe not. You know, maybe not. Maybe you've got to pay for a promo instead of going out to Longhorn this month.
They have really good mac and cheese, by the way.
They do.
I just had their mac and cheese the other day.
All right. I had it for the first time like last October. I was like, wow,
Man,
this is amazing.
There's only one that beats it, and that's the one you can get. Oh my God, what is the other restaurant? Cracker Barrel.
Yes.
Cracker Barrel has amazing mac and cheese. Absolutely amazing mac and cheese.
Todd's
And
no.
look here. So
I don't think Todd agrees.
There's I function on the assumption that no one has achieved any macaroni and cheese better than Kraft. It might just be my thing. Like,
Wow.
when I want mac and cheese, that's what I want. Any of that other shit is just like melted cheese on noodles. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm
who can
kind of
argue?
Todd.
Who can argue against cheese dust? These guys know what's going on.
Look, that's right.
I mean,
And
it's not good for you or at all. I get it, but
But it's
I don't
still
eat
the
any
best.
other mac and cheese. But by all means, my whole family does. My wife's like a mac and cheese connoisseur. She's like, "Oh my God, this is so good." I'm like, "That's bullshit."
If confidence
That's not
funds
real.
Kickstarter, if confidence
that as a
funds on
kid,
Kickstarter,
so-
there's going to be a stretch goal of mac and cheese.
Yeah,
That would be
everybody
cool.
gets a box. See, Matt's with me.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
gets a
I'm
box of
with ya.
Kraft mac and cheese. Actually, I'll buy the Target brand because it's like 39 cents a box.
I do want to
Yes.
point something out before anything else right now. The Bingstons are in here right this minute. They're in the chat. They do more supporting for indie comics than any group of people that doesn't work in this
Yes.
industry that I've ever seen. They ask for nothing. They give us sterling reviews for things that we do. They're super kind about the things that we send them. And I, for one, am very thankful, guys. I try to tell you when I see you, but I'm very thankful. I appreciate your time and your investment into our product.
Except there is one problem with that statement, Dustin. And that is they are actually working on a comic right now that I'm editing. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and soon they will be in the industry. And you guys are going to see something really fun coming out from Mike and Trish. So,
yeah, well, see, I'm excited now. Thank you so much, Chuck. You've literally made my day. I will be. I am on as soon as we find out when that's dropping. I am one of the first people to back that.
Everybody, keep your minds open and be ready for Brink and Fetch. What is it? Oh yeah, Brink and Fetch just want to have fun is the name of the book, and it is an awful lot of fun. It's sexy sexy teenagers plus supernatural. It's a lot of fun.
That sounds like an amazing concept. I mean,
it's fun.
In a world right now when a lot of books are serious, and I use mine, a lot of books are very serious. It's nice to see the comedic elements. We saw another post yesterday about how people can have flaws. What is your own flaws? One of my flaws is I beat myself up, and the other one is I'm not great at comedy, like straight comedy. I'm not great at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Chuck the other day was like, hey, you gotta, play on the comedic value of these two characters. And I'm like, I'm not that funny. So I'm gonna try to play off it a little bit. Had a lot of fun, Oz and Kate are a lot of fun to me, and to play off the two of them is a blast. The Mortal Kombat variant is going to color. Went to color yesterday, so we should be seeing that shortly. But I had a guy literally come at me, and he was like, hey, why are there Lego blocks on the ground in the pit? And I was like, do you have children? And he was like, no. And I was like, all right, well, if you step on a Lego block in the middle of the night, I can tell you that's the end of the world. Man,
it's worse than spikes.
Man, that is end all be all type of thing. And I thought that was a lot of fun that we could bring things like that because because when we were kids, Mortal Kombat 1 was in the arcade. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of fun for us to be able to do, a cosplay variant of that, especially with the movie coming out right now and the talks of what else is going on with 11 and all kinds of other stuff. But absolutely, subtle humor can, and I'm doing my best to start adding more of it from such a very serious level to come into an IP where it's serious, but at the same time we've got a 10-year-old. I mean, a 10-year-old's going to be doing all kinds of wonky shenanigans anyway.
Don't all 10-year-olds do that?
I think all 10-year-olds are bananas.
Yeah,
like absolute bananas. My daughter's
mostly they just ask what's for dinner.
Yeah, well, mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese.
And I'm not joking. My two kids, my youngest two, I should say, they are both Kraft mac and cheese junkies, and they hate when we go anywhere and they get anything else. They're like,
And if you want to make it fancy, throw some hot dogs in it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Tuna and if you want to get fancy around here, we throw tuna fish and peas.
There you go.
Oh, no.
Actually, tuna fish in mac and cheese is not bad. My girlfriend.
It's amazing.
And I'm like, this is okay, but not
okay.
Or some ground beef. I mean, just
ground beef.
Whatever heart-stopping thing you've got in your mouth, tuck it in there.
I think if we have tuna and peas, it's a healthy meat and a veggie.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
As a former, oh sorry. Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, as a former chef, you guys are scaring the shit out of me. The future of this country, when it comes to food, is just scaring the crap out of me.
Nah.
I try to, take that stuff and elevate it. And you guys are like, no, we could make this worse.
It is elevation.
What are you doing?
Let me tell you, when I was in high school, I used to love corned beef hash. I mean, I still love corned beef hash. But in high school, I discovered that you could just buy a can of it. Like
cans of corned beef hash, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, you just dump it in the pan and heat it up.
And then it splatters all over the place and burns you.
Well, and somehow at the same time, because I was a fat kid, I mean, I tried to find ways to be fatter, I think. I put fish sticks on it. Like, so I'd have a plate of corned beef hash, and I'd cook some fish sticks, and I'd eat that together. Like, it's horrific.
Did you put? Did you? And the true question is, did you put ketchup on it?
Oh hell no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, you don't need the ketchup. That's what the grease and the corned beef hash is for. You know?
I remember being 13, and I had to. A buddy of mine was like, "Why don't you guys come over? I'll make us lunch, and we'll hang out at my place." We're like, "Okay." So me and a friend, we drove, and it was like miles and miles away. We lived in the country, so we drove all the way over to his house. We got there, and by that time I'm starved. We're ready for lunch. And he's like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna make my favorite thing." And I'm like, "What's that?" And he's like, he said, "It's sugar sandwiches." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, what's a sugar sandwich?" And he's like, "You toast it, and then you put butter on it, and then you put the white sugar on it." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you're trying to make cinnamon toast.
Yeah.
Do you
Without the
have
cinnamon.
cinnamon or brown sugar?" And I'm like 13 at the time. And he's like, "No, my mom doesn't bake." I'm like, "Let's see what else you have here. This is not okay. Like, I'm not all right with this." And so at the age of 13, I'm raiding his cupboards. Like, what can we find that doesn't make you feel so fucking poor?
Like
I've
married with
had,
children back in the day eating Tang sandwiches.
Tang
I've had
sandwich.
I've had
Very
fried
children,
and,
man.
peanut butter sandwiches before. So
Tang sandwich sounds like something that I would find in a Jim Noble book.
Oh no!
I love Tang, but I don't think on a sandwich.
Oh no.
You know, I'll say
I don't know.
this,
Although maybe if you mix just enough water to make a paste, it would almost be like a really crazy orange marmalade.
No,
Not quite.
No.
You guys have made my pineapple pizza seems much more normal than
Right?
you know.
I thought I was gonna get hate when I posted that. When I posted my pizza like a week or two ago, I'm like,
Yeah.
I chose violence, but like I guess a lot of people like pineapple on pizza. I was like,
I like pineapple on
Delicious.
pizza.
Yeah, I'm about
Actually-
pineapple on pizza, man.
I like it when my daughter likes it, and I don't really love hot pineapple for some reason. I'll eat cold pineapple with hot, like I don't know why. So, but if you take it off, I like the flavor that it leaves on the pizza. That's it's got a nice flavor. It's weird. Apparently, I have food issues. It's fine.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm hard to track down.
If you have like press releases or like want to be on the campaign corner, which I run, just send me an email at greg@indiecomicsdispatch.com. Pretty sure that's the email.
That's how you know he's got like 12 other emails. Because I've got like
Email is
2.
this?
Like, exactly what they are.
My favorite thing is that he had the hardest time with the .com part. It was like Greg at comicdispatch.com. Like, is it .org? What else is
Dot
that?
net?
They saved on the domain and got the .net.
Y'all
Dot .ca.
is very serious.
.ca. Oh, that was nice.
I hear that .biz is making a comeback.
Oh, gotta get on the .biz.
.tv.
You know, I laughed when we made the shop. My website was thelistenercomics.xyz. And apparently that's a thing. I didn't know it was. I think that's awesome.
XYZ.
Oh, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, Beck, Matt's, and Steph's Kickstarter, it
Yes.
went under 10,000, and yeah.
Yay.
It's phenomenal, though, guys. I mean,
It was at 10,000 something, and then it went down. Like, they
Oh,
got a couple.
ooh.
Yeah.
How do you do that to somebody?
I was one of those people. I was like, I actually have to like lower. I have to take my one
I had
add-on
to-
off.
I've had to drop due to like financial emergency before,
But
and
I don't
I hate to do it. It makes I feel so bad, but sometimes
Yeah.
life happens.
Yeah.
So, not to scare you guys currently on Kickstarter, but when myself, like when Belial was going on in October, and there was a bunch of other ones going on at the same time, there was this rash of people who were coming on. I don't know if Greg, if you guys noticed this as much too, but there was a rash of people who were literally trolling campaigns, and they
Yep.
would come
Yeah.
on, they would put money in and then dash out, and they would put
So-
money in and they would dash out. There was one guy who put
Bobby?
in like, what's it? Well, there was
There was
a bunch of them.
Oh, so there was a Bobby guy that did our Family Matters Kickstarter. He gave us $104. Was like, sweet. And then I'm like, we hit a stretch goal. And then like now I'm waiting for future reference. But he's like, here's $104. And then like a couple minutes later, he canceled the pledge. I was like, why did you do that?
They do that to
nice
force
about it, and I'm like, oh, if we can keep you, like, how about you get like this instead? But
they do that to force you to go to those stretch goals and stuff. And yeah, it happened, and it was brutal. It happened with a bunch of people. There was one guy who so I think they put in like several $100s or something like that, and then anytime anybody else would come in and put more money in, they would take money off of their pledge, so it never looked like their campaign was moving.
Never moved.
So the backers were going up, but the number was never changing, and it was like, what the hell? Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to get you worried. This hasn't had, like, Kickstarter kind of came on and dealt with a lot of this stuff because we reported a lot of those accounts. But yeah, that was something that happened at the end of last year. We got hit with a bunch of people.
2 weeks stress level isn't enough. Now I got to start panicking.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? There's really not a lot you can do. What I would say is, if you're looking at stretch goals and stuff, maybe keep an eye on who has stretched you over. Maybe give yourself a little bit of breath before you announce the next one. You know, just to see what's up. I mean, IGG has its own problems, dude. So I mean, they and that's not against. I'm not against IGG, but they all have their own issues.
IGG's got its own thing, right? Like Todd mentioned it earlier. It's got its own type of following for IGG.
It does, yeah.
So like I made $2,600 on my first campaign, and then when I went to do the campaign, because everybody was like, hey, you should do it again on Indiegogo for people that use Indiegogo and not Kickstarter. So I was like, okay, that's cool, right? So I put it on Indiegogo and I made like $15 in a week, and I was like, there's something wrong here. You know, I really don't understand what's going on with this thing. Same kind of advertising, same show in the book,
right.
You know, but it's like there are different kinds of people in each platform, and I understand this. And our book being very heavily tied to Native American belief systems and theologies, and being involved in World War II and all that jazz, you know, maybe it's just a different group of people. You know, that's how I viewed it. So if it works for people, by all means, kill it on IGG. You know what I mean? If it's working for you. It doesn't like me though. On that note, I think I gotta head out, folks. It's been fun. I got more campaigns to support now, so I got to go do that. That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it.
That's awesome, Todd.
Yeah. Well, hit us up, Greg. Good chatting with you, and we'll stay in touch, everyone.
All right.
Take care, Todd.
Good talking to you, Todd.
Later.
Nice meeting you, man.
Okay.
Now I get to sit with everybody else.
All right.
Welcome to the Bottom Road Trip.
No, just kidding.
Oh man. Oh my gosh. So, you were talking about how the Bingsons have a book coming out. That's really exciting. Can you give us an idea of maybe a month or so when they may be doing that? So I can prepare my own funds for that particular event. You know what I mean?
Sir, what was this?
Chuck, do you have an estimate on when Trish and Mike's book will be launching?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, I didn't pick up all the words in that sentence. So they're currently on page 9 for pencils, page 19 out of 24. So they're trying to take it. I would bet we're looking at fall of 2021.
Sweet, that's exciting. Yeah. Well, that's not too far away. That's great.
Yeah, no, and
congrats to them.
They have lots of cool ideas. Trish, oh my gosh, I love that woman to death, but she's already like 12 campaigns away working on stretch goals for that. Like that woman, we were like trying to find that because they brought me in first. And basically, Mike was like, I'll pay you, check out. Yeah, that's right.
Congrats, Mike. That's awesome.
Congratulations,
awesome, dude.
Guys.
And Mike was like, look, I'll pay you to come in and check out. Yeah, they do have a cover done. I'll pay you to check out. Actually, technically, they have 2 because it's a Naughty and Nice cover.
Get them.
Yeah, yeah, it is. David Fott. It's. I don't know if I was allowed to say that, but whatever. Sorry, guys.
We definitely love us some David Fott.
Right, but he brought me in and he's like, look, I just want to know if I even have anything. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, look, you can have something. Let's keep working. And he got it up to a place where I was, we were both very happy about it. We felt like it was definitely what he was looking for and the best version of his idea. And we moved forward. And I think while we were looking for an artist, Trisha's like, okay, cool. I have these ideas. I'm gonna start making buttons, and we're like, dude, we don't even have art. What are you doing, hon? She's so excited. She's so amazing. She's
That's
so
awesome.
supportive. If there was such a thing as being overly supportive, which there isn't, but if there was, Trisha's picture would be in that dictionary heading. She's awesome. I love her to death. So yeah, man, they're gonna make a great book, and you guys are gonna like it. And I'm excited because I'm surrounded. JD, you're the only guy I don't know here. I've worked with everybody else here pretty much.
It's funny. Greg's the only person I know here.
Yeah, because Greg and I are working on Heavens Decoded. Todd and I are
very close to 100 backers.
Yep. Todd and I are working on Confidence, which we're gonna push and we're gonna make fun, and is honestly, guys, a really fun, interesting, exciting book. I enjoyed it an awful lot, and I was really had a good time with it. So I hope you will too. And his artist is just banging. Of course, Katrina is my editor on Essence House. She's the reason why it's gonna look as good as it does. And my boy Dustin, we're working on Greed 2, among a bunch of other things in the future. So, yeah, man, I'm in very good company, and I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited you came on, man. It's mad fun, and it's fun to see. It's fun, like I mentioned earlier. Surround yourself by people that will lift you up and make you better. You know what I mean? And surrounding yourself by those people means that not just people that are like people you aspire to be as well, right? Like if you're like working at a company and you want to be the boss, I'm not saying go, give him a reach around or anything, but pay attention. You know what I mean? This is what he's doing right. That's how he got there. He may have done the reach around to get there. You know what I mean? You don't have to. You know what I mean?
But we don't say no to a good reach around.
Right, well, so
Trisha's got those buttons covered.
So, you deal with these little nuances of things, and you watch these people, like, what is this Kickstarter doing that mine didn't? What is the goal? Are the goals like too lofty? Like I said, the first show I was in with Greg, I said that my goal was 2,400, and I thought that I had dropped a bomb in the room. You know what I mean? People were like, are you for real? Da, 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 da. And it's like, it's interesting, to see the different responses and what people are doing.
Oh, I thought you were reading that the entire time.
No, I wasn't at the time.
You're looking at mac and cheese recipes.
Okay. So here's the thing. I talked about this earlier on because I did another podcast this morning, and I spoke about this earlier. So no, that's a great question. Actually, an editor does not know all. And to assume that is just a ridiculous idea. So the thing is that you as a writer need extra eyes. So me having another editor, first off, I'm doing it just because it's the right thing to do. You should always have an editor look at your stuff, and you need that second set of eyes. Someone you are focused on writing a good story, but they are focused on you hitting your audience. And on getting your head out of the clouds to the point where you can deliver that story to the audience. Because a lot of times we're in the forest, we can't see everything that's going on, and it's like, dude, what are you talking about? We don't understand what's going on here. And I'm like, well, it's because of this. You never said that. Oh, okay, so I have to add this in, or anything like that. So that's why that's really important. Also, on a personal level, I've been screaming and ringing the bell for editors over and over and over. How disingenuous and shitty would it be for me to then not use one? Like, what, I'm better than everybody else or something? Like, that'd be such a bullshit statement to make. So no, I think it's really important to use an editor on everything you do. And because of that, I will use an editor on everything I do, or else that's just not a cool way of going about things.
And I would say too that we all have our own strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I personally bring to the table is I'm incredibly detail oriented. So I look at those things like, hey, Greg, how's it going, Greg? And have a good day, Trish. So I have a tendency to catch things that not everybody catches. and it's kind of like even with us as for as comic editors, I have particular jobs that I send people to Chuck for because I know he's way better suited, for certain things than I am.
I know that Chuck wouldn't ever be the editor for any of our comics because of the world building behind all of our stuff. We have this like whole continuity thing that he
that kind of thing excites me. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yes, let's do
he
it.
definitely doesn't want to touch that.
I tell people right away, like when Heaven's Decoded. Josh and Ronnie did so much work on that. And Ronnie had like this Bible of stuff, and he's like, "You got to read this Bible." And I was like, "No."
Yeah.
And he said, "What?" And I was like, "No, I won't. I won't read it." And I think he was hurt at first. But I told him, I said, "Look, my personal philosophy is, first off, I'm not here to necessarily to help you co-write this or create this stuff. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to make sure that you hit your audience. If I have all of that background information, then I already know that stuff, and I can't best see that. So when it comes to all of that behind the scenes Bible stuff, all that, I don't read it. I won't look into it, because if I don't understand what's going on from your script,
then neither are the readers.
Then neither are the readers. So that's where I come from.
So it's like the guy like you've got book 1 and book 2 and book 3, right, in a story, and you come in as a new reader, and you come in at book 3. Because we'll assume we're in the 80s and 90s again, and we don't have the internet to chase books. All right, that's the best way to look at it. You picked up an issue of Spider-Man that you found on a spinner rack, and you're checking it out, and you're like, "Oh, this is really cool." You have to still be able to understand what's happening when you pick it up. You can't just be like, "Hey, look, I need to know everything that happened in the past issues to understand what I'm reading right now." And I think that's one of the coolest things about editors is the fact that they reach out and they go, "Hey, look, I know this story, I know what's behind it, but at the same time, you have to give the nuances of what's occurring." Another example, like I said, because it's easy, because it's my stuff. When the last time Chuck and I talked about Greed, the next issue of Greed, it was like, "Hey, look, you've got all this stuff going on. Why are they in this situation? What is the reasoning behind the situation?" And it was like, "Oh, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. I need to explain more of this, because heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? I mean, you know all the information, you know everything that's going to happen, and or has happened. No one else knows but you. You know what I mean? Even your artists, your art team, like a couple of my guys don't like to read ahead because they like to be in the moment when they're doing the pages, because they like to put their own emotional value into the creations that are being put in the panels. So it's like, okay, well, hey, did you know this, and this happened? Oh, no, I didn't get that far yet. And you want to be like, you mean you didn't get that far yet? But at the same time, it's their process, and these guys are professionals, and if you pay them, respect the process. You know what I mean? It's not a diss, it's not an insult. Respect their process. They're here for a reason. They know what they're doing. You know what I mean? So it's whatever. I understand there are bad apples, and stuff happens in situations, but that's not every case. So go at it with an open mind. If your editor says, "Hey, look, there's a problem with this," they're not insulting you. They're just coming at you with something that needs to be fixed, because they're not in there with you. They're not in the forest with you. That phrase is the best. You can't see the forest for the trees, and you can't, because your elbow is deep in it. And you're looking around, going, "Can someone help me?" And it's just more trees. You know what I'm saying?
I will say that I was an English teacher for more than 10 years. I taught high school. I taught at the college level. I taught writing. I taught creative writing. I've read and edited more papers than you can imagine. And the first thing I did was I thought I need an editor, because I know that fact. Like, I know that I can't edit my own work. I know that I'm terrible at it, because I know that I assume everybody knows what I know. And that's exactly... so you ask why Chuck needed an editor. It's the same reason I needed an editor. I'm not an editor necessarily, but I could if I had to be. Like, it wouldn't be awesome. Maybe not the best choice, but like, it's definitely something I have done. And I totally did not even think for a second that I was going to not get another outside person to look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mike just said in the comics you can always revise, but you can never edit, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard to see that.
Our original Seer Chronicles, like, it was all like not put together the right way because, like, I thought that. I was like, oh, well, they don't need to know like this, but they need to know this. And then Chuck's like, no, you're gonna do this. I'm like, all right. And then
Chuck's
he
just like,
taught us
no.
about like page turns and stuff because like we knew about that, but we didn't know like really how that works. That's a whole big thing. So that's literally what we try to do on all of our comics, which obviously is like a thing you should do. And we just edited it. We just finished with Ink 2, if Travis is watching. So that, like, I can't wait to start that after like the 1,000 other comics that we're currently finishing. But there's like cool page turns in that. So
that's awesome. You see, that's exciting, right? And that goes hand in hand with not only editors, but you know, earlier it was mentioned, you know, the editors aren't paid just to go in and make sure that your words are spelled right and, you know, your punctuation is correct. That also goes hand in hand with letterers, guys. You know what I mean? Make sure you get your stuff checked before it goes to them because they'll help. For the most part, most of them are really cool people and they'll help, but it's not their job. You know, a lot of times if you put it in there and they change it, they worry about the fact you may get upset with them changing your script because they're not trying to mess anything up, especially when it comes to language. When you start adding slang and other stuff to different ways people talk, that's a whole animal.
Like my letterer is from Chile, you know, like English is not his first language. So like, yeah, he speaks English, but you know, there might be nuances that I put in there that he's going to, you know, he's just going to take what I give him and say, yes, this is what they want. So yeah, you can't count on them to be like, he must have meant this, so I'm going to change it. Like,
and
word for word.
When I've proofread, I've done it at script level and on completed books.
Yeah,
and even if it's remember your editor should be there as close to the beginning as possible to help with those kind of things because you know I said, you know, I could have saved your letter a lot of work if I had seen this at script level.
Well, and also there at the end, right, where we can step in and just be like, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't working. That's because a lot of times what will happen is you'll make changes based on the art. Yep. You'll see the art and you'll go, oh, cool, I'm going to add this line or I'm going to do this thing or whatever, which is fine. But we didn't okay that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we haven't seen that. So maybe there's some misspellings or the twang doesn't work or whatever it is. Give us the chance to go through. And I have a package deal. Like when you get me for everything. So I always come in at the very end and go over every lettered page when it's done and make sure that everything makes sense and that, you know, the spelling and pronunciation is all there. I have a lot of people who are like, don't worry, my wife proofs it. And I'm like, I'm sure your wife is incredibly intelligent, but her name's not on the book. Mine is. Please, just let me do this. It's not costing you anything more, okay?
And no offense to anybody's spouse, but do you know all the rules of lettering?
Right.
And things like that, like, you know, with an ellipsis or, you know, the various little things that you might use in regular text, like in prose. But that's not necessarily okay.
I thought it was just because you like bacon.
You know,
it helps. It's also that I'm a good cook.
No.
On a side note, nothing bothers me more than people who put 4 periods in an ellipsis.
Or two.
Two.
Yeah, or two.
Bugs me. Oh man.
Two bugs me.
Grammar.
I don't know how many times I've gone through books and gone, it has 3. 3 guys. Like, the number is 3.
There's a reason that like Microsoft Word, like when you hit 3, it like makes it 1 character for you. Like, don't keep going. Like,
right, no.
You don't need more periods.
And you don't need a period at the end of them, guys. So don't try telling me that that's why there's 4.
That's so weird. Why people do that?
Yeah.
People will come up with all kinds of reasons for why they do things, and I'm just like, no.
Like Dylan does, like make a couple mistakes when he's running through the script, and then I am editing his work, and I'm like, that's spelled wrong. And he's like, oh.
People will also try to, and this happens a lot, where they're like, hey, I have this philosophy. I want to change things. I want to do things differently. So maybe, like Kat, maybe they're going to decide, I don't need punctuation.
We don't use end. We don't use end punctuation. Not all punctuation, just end punctuation, unless it's
is that what it was?
Mark. Yeah, question marks are okay, but otherwise, we're not using any end punctuation.
It's like Latin.
It's weird.
Oh,
I want to punch you in. Hey, remember that that thing you said? I had permission to punch you in the dick. This might work. So
I'm gonna give myself the option and pass it off to Chuck. So
I'll punch you twice just for you.
Yeah, twice now.
That's awful. Oh my God. I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. It's like, I get that you want to be different, and it's important to stand out and it's important to be original. But man, there's certain rules that you got to play by.
Well, the worst part of that particular project was that it was a trade paperback or graphic novel, so it was long. And I had already gone through the entire book and made note of every single lack of missing punctuation, sent it to them, and he goes, oh yeah, no, we don't use end punctuation. I was like, oh no, you owe me like $1 billion now, because I just wasted like an entire week of my life doing this.
But why though? Yeah.
He thinks it. This particular creator thinks it's innovative to not use end punctuation. That the art and what the words are there. I saw that. Stop that. That the art and what's there in writing should be enough to tell you what the punctuation should be.
For sure. I'm also of the school of thought that you should be able to read a comic book even if you can't read. And I know that may sound strange to people, but you should be able to pick it up and understand exactly what's happening without, maybe subtle nuance, you know what I'm saying? But the art should speak for itself,
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going in, and especially with, like I said, if you're not going and you're getting people to edit it or read it or anything else like that, there can be nuances in your pages that mean different things. I mean, hand signals, the way people are standing, just slight motions. There was a scene in the first listener where, like I said, a lot of my book has to do with PTSD, and we use PTSD to tell story, so like you're walking toward this flame, this big old bonfire, and it takes Addie back to his grandfather's funeral, which in their belief system, they would burn the entire home with the individual in it after they passed, and you wouldn't talk about that individual for a period of time because it was considered disrespectful. You wouldn't use their name or anything like that. So we use that to take us there. And if you're familiar with, like, even if you're familiar with PTSD, but if you, reading my book, you can see it. I mean, there's at least a couple people in this room that have read my books. You know what I mean? So you can see what I'm talking about versus if I don't do it correctly, it's not going to work. It's not going to make any sense. It's going to look just strange, versus the page turner, that Greg just mentioned. At the very bottom of that particular page, there's a panel with Guy tapping Addie on the shoulder, bringing him back to a present time. So you're wondering what happens after he comes back to what you're seeing, So there's all kinds of nuances to these things. And if you don't know the skill set, and people can argue all they want, it is a skill set. You have to have it. To write a comic book and to create panels, you have to have a skill set for it, and to go, I'm just going to make a comic book is ignorant, like these small things that make it are what make the books popular. Greg's got a bunch of titles coming out, but people pay attention because the titles are interesting. There are things that he does that makes the title interesting. If I were to go, okay, I'm not going to add any page turners to it. I'm not going to add any action. I'm not going to add any gore. Absolutely have to make it talk. There are certain things that if I didn't add them, my book wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting as it is, versus having an editor. The first book, I didn't have one. You know what I mean? It was us it was me, Kyle, and the cover artist and Eric, our interior artists that were doing this book. And it was like, okay, we're very lucky and we're very appreciative of how well the book did. Versus when you look at my second book and it's leaps and bounds beyond, and it's not like years passed or anything like that, or even 6 months passed. It was a 2-month period from one book to the next month. But at the same time, we had an editor, we had a letterer, a professional letterer. All these things make a difference in your books. And I'll preach it to the end of time. I'm super glad. Like, I have 2 editors right now. I have Chuck and I have Phil. Phil is my co-editor in case Chuck doesn't, misses something or doesn't have time, which he doesn't do that. So don't worry about Chuck on that. I'm just saying.
It happens. I'm not worried.
Sometimes, though, it's nice to have other people see things, just like he mentioned, and it makes it for a better product, So filling out your team is the goal. And I think that's the coolest thing about this particular show that we've done today is talking about actually filling out your team, because all these people that you see that are credited on comic books are credited for a reason. There's a reason there's an editor. There's a reason there's a co-editor. There's a reason there's a letter, inker, line artist, whatever, and what have you. All these people have their parts to play, and it's just like Jenga, right? If you go into Jenga and you're missing parts at the bottom, it's liable to fall faster than it is if it's missing parts at the top, and it's very influential when you have these guys that have been doing this for a long time. Chuck's on how many books now? 15, 20 books, Chuck, at a minimum right now?
That's my current plate, as I call it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's current. And that's not even talking about the stuff he's done previously. But that's what I'm getting at. There's something to be said about bringing people in that have tenure almost. When you bring in an artist, like I mentioned earlier, bring in people that have been around a little bit, bring in people that are influential, that can help you push your book or help you with your book. I'm learning that a lot of times artists have certain things they like to do when they do a cover. They come in, they're like, I might advertise it once or twice. I might. But then you have other artists that come in and they're advertising your book left and right. You know what I mean? You have to understand who you're bringing on your team. Because a lot of times you pay a little bit more. Like we've got Justin Hunt coming on for the next issue of Greed, the one that Chuck is working on. Justin Hunt will be on, and I'd like to keep Chuck with us for the length of every project. He and I have talked about that, but there's something to be said about when you bring these guys on, they have in their cost, right? It's like built in. Like when you pay for Justin Hunt, you pay for Justin Hunt's advertising. Yeah. You know what I mean? You pay for this, and this, and there are little nuances to people. So like if it's a newer artist that people haven't seen, those nuances aren't built yet. You know what I mean? They may not know that you would like them to do this. You may have to ask them to advocate for your book. Even though it's their book too, it's still, you may have to be like, hey, look, can you help me out? Can you push this a little bit? Versus people that have been in the industry a long time that are like, hey, look, this is in what you paid for. You get this, and this, So.
Well, and especially when you're new, I think being an advocate for your work, even if you don't necessarily own it. So let's say you're an inker and you come on and you're inking other people's books. Helping to push that book is also helping to push your work, showing that you do stuff, that you're a hard worker, that you're getting your stuff out there. And then the success of that book is the success that you get to own as well. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, that's huge. I've been lucky to be on some huge books, and I've been on some really small books, but you push them all. It doesn't matter. It's scary. I mean, I agree that it's a thing, but you want to be in the business. You want to get out there and show your stuff off. You got to get over your shit. Like, I'm sorry, it's just a fact. Yeah.
Well, stylistically, right? That's another thing that I've seen people talk about. They worry about their style and how their style is justifiable in the modern market. Does my style fit? Does this work? And stuff like that. But at the same time, you look at these people that have come in and make their own niches, right? They make their own plays. Look at Peach Momoko, right? May not be everybody's favorite artist in the whole world, but she came in, smashed it, and now everybody knows her name. You know what I mean? Whether you've been in the industry a long time or you just walked into it, her name is a household name. And that can't be said for a lot of people. You know, so if you come in with your own style and you show it off a little bit, it may do well. Like Gabriela Ramos, and I get that too. But
I have that problem, Mike. I get it.
She does all my cover A's for the listener. She comes in and she does all my cover A's. She doesn't work on another comic book at all. She tattoos professionally. She only does my cover A's. Every time she does a book for me, she sells the most covers in my Kickstarter. Every single time. Doesn't work on another book, has her own style, sells the most. And like I drop names on my books. So if she's selling the most out of people that are really, really heavy hitters, there's something to be said about people in their own style. You know, people enjoy it. It's different. You could see the same style over and over and over again. It's like a slide. You know, you keep seeing the same particular art style. You know, Chuck and I talked about it on a cover the other day of ours. You know what I mean? It's like you see the same style, and then all of a sudden there's a new one. You know what I mean? It's like if you see the color blue every day, then all of a sudden you see the color pink. It's like, well, hey, you know, that's interesting. You know, it catches your attention. And even if it only catches your attention for a minute, you're going to go tell your buddy that you saw pink today. You know, it's very different, you know, and I would like to see the musician. That'd be cool too. But it's just, it's like, you know, what is that phrase with the, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is pink, right? Yeah. So it's that little difference, that little nuance that you bring to the table that can set you apart from other people. And I find that that's a great way for comic books artists, comic book writers to market their books. You know what I mean? These are different. This is my person. No one else uses them. How awesome are they? I feel like that about Eric. If you open the listener, there's nobody out there doing his style right now. It's his style. You know, it looks great. It's his own. You know, and you see people come out with that stuff and they stand out. So do your part. Lift them up a little bit. You know what I mean? Lift them up so people can see them. Because the more they see them, the more they see you. And that's my opinion about advertising for each other. You know, like I go out and I'm like, hey, look, Chuck's over here. Chuck's great. He's editing my book. Have you read this? And it's easy to use Chuck because he's in the room. But that's just what I'm saying. If I have a team member that is doing something awesome, April's doing Rising Tides. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's smashing right now for her first ever Kickstarter. Yeah, what are we, 3,700 right now or something like that? I mean, killing it for a Kickstarter for the very first one, and an art book, not a comic book, but an art book.
It's not April's first Kickstarter.
I thought it was her first.
It's her second one. She did one back. She did Squee back in October.
See, I didn't see Squee, so that's good. That's good.
But either way, April's awesome.
Phenomenal,
and everything she does is great.
One of the coolest people I've met in this industry. You know what I mean? And has come out and backed me when she got on with my book. She was like, "Hey, I'm coming out of my comfort zone to do a cover for you. Can I do one?" I said, "Yes, please, absolutely." And it was the coolest concept of Cade and Oz under the bed. As kids, we all hid under the bed at points in time. I just thought that was the coolest idea, that you would come out of this like you're like a normal action sequence or something, and then just our characters under the bed with like a flashlight. You know, like, what are you guys doing under there in the dark? You know, it's all shiesty looking and whatnot. But it was really, really cool, and it comes from a different place for this particular individual. You know, so to be able to do something fun like that stands out. You know, like she just took our Minotaur demon and mixed it with like a sea cow. You know, and literally, it was the coolest thing. I mean, what if you're going to mix a Minotaur with something, a sea cow makes perfect sense. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's all good stuff.
I wanted to comment about the spamming thing that Mike said. That's bullshit. Look, it's not spamming if you're changing what you're saying. So if you're sending something, like let's say you have one picture that day that you want to show out, and you want to show it off on 20 different boards, just change what you're talking about each time you put it on a different board. So, you know, like let's say Dustin has April's cover. So the first one, he might talk about April. The second one, he might talk about the composition. The third one. And so you just find different ways of saying the same thing. At that point, it's not spam. It's a different thing. And I hate this thing where people are like, oh, but what about overexposure? You think Nike's fucking worried about overexposure? You think fucking Coca-Cola? People are getting into your head and you're letting them in there. Fuck off. Shut the door. Get your shit out there. You know, Belial, we pushed that motherfucker up a hill like mad. I was on every podcast. I was out there on every board. We put Sean and I push. His memes for that were everywhere. And that's because we said, fuck spamming. It's not a thing. Also, the algorithm. Zuckerberg is crushing you, and you're letting him by being afraid of spamming. Get over that shit and just push that thing to everywhere and everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I like doing my memes, and it's just that one meme, and it just like shows a bunch of Kickstarters. These are all the ones you should support.
I think that you may have created a monster right now, because I think I have like 30 of photos that I've edited recently to start. Because I did the one for with Howie Mandel the other day, and now I have like a ton of them put away for the listener.
Yeah.
And I started doing this fun thing, and you guys can do these things at home. Don't pay people to do them for you. You know, if you have Windows 10 or anything like that, you know, Paint 3D, any of that stuff will do it for you. You know what I mean? Just take a couple minutes of your day, learn how to use it. Really simple stuff. So as you go through, like we did an image where we cut Cade out, and we
don't know. We weren't there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. No, but that's right.
We cut Cade out, and we put him on my table on my back porch. And I literally sat down, and we took a photo of me sitting down in a chair, and then we put Cade sitting on the table like we were having a conversation. It's really easy stuff to do. Like it used to be difficult. You know, stuff like that used to be really hard. I used to have Photoshop. Used to have all kinds of other programs. Nowadays, Paint 3D is free. You know what I mean? Magic Select. You can go in there and cut things out. Take 10 minutes of your time to make a cool little ad for your book. You know, if you want it that bad, take a little bit of time. You know what I mean?
I have GIMP, but I still have to learn how to use GIMP.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not, the only graphic design kind of stuff I do is like Canva. So.
Well, and I was going to say Canva is a good free resource. And also,
those are the two.
You know, Clip Studio is $100, which isn't a terribly huge amount, but a couple times a year they run it for half off. So $50 for a program you actually get it for $50, not like Photoshop. You don't just rent it monthly. But for a program that has basically the same caliber of, you know, power, I guess the best way to put it is Photoshop. I mean, it's the deal. That's what I did. $50, and it's, you know, I could do just about anything you can do in Photoshop.
Hey,
you can with GIMP too, but GIMP, the learning curve on GIMP sucks.
For sure. I've never invested in GIMP.
I tried it for years.
I didn't want anything to do with it. I was like, this other stuff looks real simple, so I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? And this is real easy. I click the cutout button. I trace the dude, and he's cut out. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to get into any kind of shenanigans. But it's really cool to see you on here, Todd. I wanted to tell you that earlier. I've watched
people tell me that all the time.
Well, no, it's not just that. I've watched you comment on things that you've talked about your project and confidence and how important it is. And I think that a lot of us that are writers have, whether we portray it or not, we have confidence issues. You know what I mean? We really do. And I think it's really cool of you to step up and be like, hey, look, I'm going to start doing shows. I'm going to start being out there. I'm going to start putting my book out there for people to see it. I applaud you for that. You know,
you had the confidence.
Yep. You know what I mean?
I was waiting for it.
You know, but that's such a cool name for your book when you know that there's an issue. Like I remember as a kid when Breaking Benjamin put out their first album, it was called Polyamorous. Mm-hmm. And the thing with Ben Burnley though is he has like every phobia under the sun.
Yeah.
Like, every phobia you can imagine. You know what I mean? The guy doesn't even like to come out of his house. You know, he doesn't like planes. He doesn't like tour buses. That's one of the reasons the band fell apart originally. You know what I mean? Because he would do things and then claim that he, you know, would or would not be there, could not be there for this reason or that reason, or he was ill or whatever else. You know, and for people to fight past these fears is something to be proud of. So, like Chuck mentioned, whether you make it or not in this particular Kickstarter, and you've already mentioned how high the goal was. So if you make it or not, understand this: you've broken your own barrier already. You've beaten the monster. Like we all talk about the demon. You know, we all have our own demons. And you've beaten yours with this ability to come out in public and be like, hey, look, I'm putting out a comic book. I put myself out there, and it's powerful, man. And I applaud you for it. I think it's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It has been a eye-opening experience, I guess. Like it really has. I mean, I'm not a complete introvert, but like I prefer to be an introvert. But you get me talking about the right thing, and people think I'm outgoing, but it's just, you just catch me on the right thing that I, happen to know a lot about or like. But I can't go into a room of people and make friends, which is really hard in this business because like networking is such a big deal. I vend at all like shows in my area selling, t-shirts and decals and stuff. So I know all the creators in my area, and I'm still scared to go up and talk to half of them. Like I still am like, ooh, that's a whole step I don't need to take. I get nervous going to ask for signatures when I go to big shows from like creators that I respect. I'm like I made an idiot of myself in front of Jason Aaron, who's like my favorite writer from, works for Marvel, writes Thor, big deal, super nice guy. I walked up to him and I was like, "Oh, you're my favorite writer," and I'm like shaking. I'm like 37 at the time too. It's not like this was like when I was 15. And I was like, I've loved almost everything you've written. And I was like, that came out stupid. And he's like, oh, what didn't you like? And I was like, no, I just meant I haven't read everything you've written. God damn it. And I was just like, thanks for signing my book. And I just like walked away like a moron. And that's like, so it's hard. Like I'm not good in these situations. And I appreciate that, someone appreciates the fact that I am,
absolutely.
I've been trying to be very open in my posts too. I've been trying to not just,
I follow
sales
it.
pitch.
I follow it all the time. You know what I mean? Because I'm like,
I appreciate it.
There's a lot to be said about our peers in this industry. You know what I mean? Like, so I have a show coming up. It's at the end of the month. It's the Memorial Day weekend Suncoast Comic Show, right? Jim Noble and I are going, Mike DeBalfo, Marissa Pope, Brian Kincaid, a bunch of us are going. We all know each other, right? We all know each other. We've known each other for a while. And we all requested to be on like the same row because we all knew each other. This is a newer show. We didn't know who would be there, who wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, let's all get together so we can literally just slide books down the tables and get them signed and whatnot. You know what I mean? But there still comes this point where when you're dealing with people that you've been fans of, a fan of, or multiple people fans of, that you want to get books signed or you're going to hang out or whatever else, sitting and having a beer with a dude that you've been a fan of for 15 years is a big deal. And regardless of anybody's, self-confidence or anything like that, I still go, am I allowed to sit at this table? You know what I mean? There are still those moments where I'm sitting there and I'm like, is this real? You know what I mean? There are dudes at this table that are, making what I make a year on 3 and 4 books. You know what I'm saying? Is this a serious conversation? But they don't treat you like that. And I think that's something that coming up and people coming up in the industry need to understand. Once Hutchinson said it the best. He said, if you made it, you've made it. Tom, it was a really cool conversation. Tom was sitting and talking to some dude, and I was watching him talk about it. He was like, hey, if you've put a book out, no one can take that from you. You know what I mean? You've put it out. It's yours. No one can ever take that. In the annals of history, you have put out this particular book, and it exists. It's out there. 30 years from now, if you printed well, hopefully we all print well. If you printed well, that book still exists. It was taken care of. It's still going to be out there. If you go into one of the 800 long boxes that are in this house and you start going through them, you're going to find indie books like Blackthorn and stuff like that have been around forever, but there's only so many of them in the world. And there are cats that chase those books. One of these days, there's going to be somebody chasing confidence. There's going to be one of these days, somebody's chasing scales, whatever, what have you. There's going to be people out there that are Adam Field fans that are chasing Adam Field's covers in the future.
I actually know one guy that is a fan of Adam Field, and I know who to target.
It's not just one guy, dude. I swear. When I ran my anthology Kickstarter, with him, all he did was he only had time for a pinup. I sold more than triple the amount of his pinup than anybody else in prints, and I would say a third of the backers on that book were just people who were like, "Oh, Adam did it, I want it."
Absolutely. But see, that's
dude, he has one pinup on one page in the back of it, and they bought a $15 book for that alone.
Wow.
You got to surround yourself with that. You know what I'm saying? It's a business. Know who you're trying to hire.
So you guys are very much also talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which and I have a favorite story that I love to tell. I actually found the story. It's Neil Gaiman's imposter syndrome story. It's a great story. Yeah, you've heard this. It's great. It goes like this. This is straight from Neil Gaiman. Some years ago, I was lucky enough to be invited to a gathering of great and good people, artists and scientists, writers and discoverers of things. And I felt that at any moment they would realize that I didn't qualify to be there among those people who had really done things. On my second or third night, I was standing at the back of the hall while a musical entertainment happened, and I started talking to a very nice, polite, elderly gentleman about several things, including our shared first name. And then he pointed to the hall of people and said words to the effects of, I just look at all these people and I think, what the heck am I doing here? They've made amazing things. I just went where I was sent. And I said, yeah, but you were the first man on the moon. I think that counts for something. And I felt better, because if Neil Armstrong felt like an imposter, maybe everyone did. Maybe there weren't any grown-ups, only people who had worked hard and also got lucky and were slightly out of their depth. All of us doing the best job we could, which is all we can really hope for. Neil Gaiman wasn't even the most famous Neil in the room that he was in. And and even the most famous Neil was like, dude, I don't deserve to be here. We all feel this way, guys. Get over it. Confidence is a mind fuck. It's a fucking Jedi mind trick that you play on yourself.
Yeah.
Just tell yourself, I deserve to fucking be here, and go do it. That's all confidence is.
You gotta have
I would say for years. I mean, I started in the industry as a reviewer, for those who don't know. And I used to, people are like, you're part of the industry. I'm like, no, I'm on the fringe at the best. I considered myself an outsider to the whole thing. And I've said that to a couple of people, and they're like, are you out of your mind? You're doing things before anybody else was doing them. And you've made the connections, you've got the friends, you're not, you're not an outsider. That's just an absolute crazy thing to think. I thought, well, I tricked myself into thinking that. Nobody else was necessarily thinking it.
For sure.
But I talked myself into that's what it was.
And I mean, you were on the fringe because you put yourself there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you're not at all, because you recognized, I'm not that person.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Well, I remember doing a show in Phoenix. You brought up Mike DeBalfo. And I was standing at the table just talking to him. He goes, would you come around here and sit down? And I was like, Mike wants me to sit behind the table? Like, what? And I know if I'd said that, he would have just laughed.
Yeah.
But to me, I wasn't at his level.
Right.
So why would he ask me to sit behind his table?
Right on. And that's the thing, right? Though, I met him before I knew who he was. If that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did. I kind of did too. I had no idea when I first met him, who he was or what he did.
Jim Noble, you know what I mean? I met Jim Noble as a person before I knew he had anything to do with comic books. And that's where the basis is on most of my friendships are. I knew people before I knew who they were. Like Mike, I played Mortal Kombat with Mike for a year before I opened my store. Didn't even know that I was supposed to figure out that's who he was. And, because it was Raven Gregory that put us together. And he was like, you guys will get along really well. You're both dads. You both work, long hours. You can only hang out in the evenings. You guys will get along great, right? And when I told him I was going to open a comic shop, he was like, what kind of motherfucker doesn't invite his buddy to do a signing at his comic shop? And I was like, why would I invite you? And he he was like, because of comics, jackass, you know what I mean? So it was like, so, you know, he was one of the first people to come to a signing at my shop when I opened it. And like I said, when I wrote my uncle's eulogy, he was one of the first people to be like, hey, you have to do something with that. There's talent behind that, you know, follow that. Don't just let it go and take up some normal Joe Blow job at the end of the day. You know, you gotta work, you know, go do this. So I was like, okay. And then a couple other people did, and it was awesome. But when you put yourself, it's real easy to slide into that syndrome, though. It's so super easy. Like I got, so Jim and I, neither one of us were invited to this event on Saturday night. You know, the big shows have big events for the big draws. You know what I mean? They all do. They all take these guys out and they you know, they woo them and whatever else. We did it for the shop. You know what I mean? When they come into town, you take them out and you have a good time. All right. We weren't invited. I get it. I'm not there yet. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, doesn't mean we're not going to have a good time. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, look, you know, I rented a cabin. We're all going to hang out at the cabin Friday night, you know, BS, you know, drink, do barbecue, whatever else, you know. And that to me is going to be just as much fun as the event Saturday night that we didn't get to go to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just because you have to do your time. There's a difference between knowing your worth but expecting more than your due. You know what I'm saying? Because put 20 years in the industry. Then if you don't get invited into those events, then get pissed off. You know what I mean? Hey, why didn't I get invited? You know, I've been around 20 years. I sell more books. I do this, da-da-da-da-da. Invite me. I'm a name now. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it doesn't take any of us 20 years to get to the point where we're, you know, invited. But that's just an example of there are counterpoints to the, you know, the imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? It's like we all need to know our worth. And I didn't know it until the end of my second book. I was scared to death. I didn't think the books would sell like I wanted them to, you know. And when we put out Greed, it was like, well, like you said, it was like $1,500 in a day and a half. I was nowhere near prepared for that. I was so excited, so thankful, you know, so excited and so thankful. But there's a point where you're like, okay, well, now we have to reach more people. We have to learn more. We have to do more. We have to put ourselves out there. And like Chuck said, we can't go and be afraid. It's not spamming if you do it correctly. You know, it's not obnoxious if you're showing different pieces of art or you're doing different things with it. Like, I'm excited for all of you guys. I pay attention. You know, I pay attention to people that use the same teammates I do because I promote my teammates. You know, to see Adam work on this stuff with Greg is awesome. You know, there were a couple panels that we saw early that were just like, holy crap, that's amazing. I need to get behind that. You know, there's just, and, you know, we like things like that where Greg reaches out and he goes, dude, I need a bar of soap. That made me laugh so hard. I almost, like, I literally laughed so hard because it was like 3 people reached out to me about a bar of soap. Like, the soap did more, it did a lot better than it should have. It really did. And it was exciting and it was fun, but it was like, that's how you know that the industry is going places because people give a shit about the other people in the industry. Yeah. Because we don't, where even the big names, they don't work for Marvel like they used to. You know what I'm saying? They're coming into the indie world and going, hey, look, this is a new zone for us to be in. You know, so don't think that people are above you. Reach out to them. Like I mentioned, all of our artists. I did it because either I knew them or they would bring things to the table. You know, you don't build a football team and try to grab all the third string. You know, you want to bring in some draw. You know, and I'm thankful. You know, I'm thankful for Chuck. I'm thankful for everybody involved. You know,
oddly enough, when I was putting together my Ohio anthology about 1.5 years ago, we brought in because he lives in Akron, right by me, Matt Horak, who draws for Marvel. He was drawing Spider-Man Deadpool at the time.
Right.
You know. And we got him to draw our cover, you know, because we were like, oh, it's going to be a name. That didn't do exactly what we thought. Turns out Matt Horak doesn't really do a whole lot of social media or anything, so that didn't help much. But we still thought that the name would help, but I don't know how much it really did. But, you know, the fact that he was accessible and reasonable for the, you know, price-wise and everything, we only paid him $250 to do that cover. And he was working at Marvel at the time.
I'm really thinking of doing Brian Silverbacks as
do it.
a cover just because like he definitely promotes.
He's a good dude. He's got a lot of talent.
I'm willing anytime, Greg. You just let me know. I will draw you the best stick figure cover you have ever seen.
I actually am coming out with a comic next year with Josh Harris that is part of Heavens Decoded. It's called Mittens Space Pilot, and it's actually kid-friendly kind of, which is kind of weird because there's no swearing in it. So it's very hard to write a script when you swear all the time. So, yeah, there's no swearing, and it's
no way.
Well, kids stuff is my corner.
Yeah, I had one scene in it, and then he was reading it, and he's like, I don't think you can have that in the comic because that's too violent for kids. I was like, I should get that out of there.
The number one, this one story I've revealed from this book is I was trying to figure out how to do it because all the cats are named in the colonies, and the first story I wrote was about a cat named Rocky, which is now kind of bitten me in the ass because everybody he's a fighter. He works out in the gym, and was trying to figure out where to go with it, and he ends up in a dance battle against another group because it has to be kid friendly,
right?
So you've got this rival group who wants to come in and use the gym. They're like, oh, I don't know, and so they're like, prepare to be balleted.
Oh gosh.
But it's now bitten me in the ass because I've had 3 or 4 other creators who have heard this story, and now they're like, okay, well, where's Rocky 2?
Huh?
They want me to write a new story for the number of movies and hope that no more movies are ever coming out.
And then you're gonna have like a Russian cat.
How far are we going with it? But it's funny what people latch onto. They heard it, and I thought it's an okay story, because I don't ever think my stuff is marvelous, but because as always, we see our biggest flaws ourselves. And but no, they've latched onto this, and they they want like a whole series now of stories.
What we often do is we look at what we wrote and we compare it to what we wanted to write, and we don't see it for what it is. We don't see that it turned out really cool. We just see that it didn't turn out exactly the way we thought. So we miss the value of it to a degree, but that's just apparently in human nature.
I think it is. I think we're always pushing ourselves to that next level, whatever that level may be. And
I know a character. Go ahead. There's actually a character that Covenant Comics actually has, or they're like the guy's part of them. Jesse Bear. Burlap is like just awesome. If you're
definitely
into like this kind of stuff, you would like Burlap. It's like got the horror vibe to it, superhero-ish kind of thing, but not like vigilante. It's a very good book, and you should definitely check that out.
Basically, it's a slasher, but it's a twist on a slasher. So it's like the villains are the victims of this slasher vigilante. So like there's like a bunch of slashers, and but they're the victims of this other slasher who is the vigilante, and so. I love it.
Dexter,
I might be a little biased,
It's like Dexter, but like Burlap isn't.
There you go. Yeah.
What kind of like art style is that? Is that like a Johnny the Homicidal Maniac type of art style, or?
It's so it's black and white, and it's like it's like when you think of comic books, it's like that type of art style, but black and white. So I like to think more of like. I don't know. So to me, that's like a Western style. That's like it actually has Western in it too. Actually.
Well, there you go. So nowadays, what I mean by that is if you look at mainstream comics, it's nice to see different types of books, but Marvel and DC run almost a very similar style of the artwork that they put out in their books. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's we're all like right now, everybody's gravitating toward. Like I said, the Peace Momoko, the Stanley Lau, you know what I mean? It's becoming very digital in a lot of these covers. You know what I'm saying? Overly digital, we'll say. Not just a little digital, but overly digital. And so Western is very different than like right now, my books sell really well in the European market. Like the listener, like Greed is doing great over here, but the listener does so much better over there aftermarket from after the Kickstarter than it did here, you know. And it's just because of art style. People are interested in different things in different parts of the world. You know, you have to look at demographics. That's exciting though, man. I love the concept of Dexter was great. Who didn't love Dexter?
Yeah.
You know, the comic book was
Brand
great.
new season.
You know, I'm excited about it. I was a big fan of the novels. You know, he went to prison and all that jazz. I hated the way they ended the show because of the fact that the novels were still going. So it was like, what happened? You know, but when you're dating your co-star that's supposed to be your sister, it's not great anyway, I would think.
Yeah.
So, you know, a little awkward, but whatever. There was an editing issue there, Chuck. Somebody should have handled that.
Right? Oh,
That was not great.
I'll take the job.
So if you all want to go around the virtual room, one last time and do your little elevator pitch and whatnot for your Kickstarter, do that, and then we will end this.
Sounds like fun.
So we can start with JD.
Alrighty. So again, my name is JD Gonzalez, the writer and creator of Crossbones. It is about a cartel member who is, again, imbued with a strange, weird, disgusting at sometimes superpower of controlling his bones, and we explore that. And then he, with that, is faced with the challenge of righting the wrongs and the sins of his past. Kind of like Ice Pick, it's a lot of influence from Dante's Inferno, Divine Comedy, a lot of influence from Supernatural, a lot of influence from Narcos Mexico, Breaking Bad, and a lot of influence from superheroes, because, again, I love that stuff. So I put a lot of that stuff into my writing. So yeah, that's live on Kickstarter right now. We are about 160 something% above our goal, trying to get to our first stretch goal. So yeah, that's me.
Sweet. I'm Dustin. I wrote and created The Listener, and I also currently write Greed as well. I have a third IP coming out by the end of the year. I'm really excited about that. But currently our Kickstarter is for Greed, and it's a lot of fun, right? It's like basically like you take this kid and you give him a buddy that a 10-year-old kid shouldn't have. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that older kid that you never wanted your kid to hang out with, right? Like, they're definitely not supposed to be hanging out with that guy. But they get into all these situations, you know, where you're constantly bringing up a child's point of view, like, should I act like this? Should I be like this? But it's part of this much larger world in our umbrella, you know, we'll call it, of the Listener franchise and stuff. So it's a standalone book, but you get a lot more from it if you understand the nuances of the world we've created. We're going to start bringing in a couple more characters in the following books that you've seen in other projects of ours. Lilith is huge. She'll be making her first appearance in the next book. We're bringing on Chuck Pinot for that book. We're bringing on David Fott for that book. Justin Hunt's coming on for that book. A lot of big names. April's coming back for that one. I think we're going to have Marissa Pope on that one. So lots of really cool folks. But if you enjoyed like Little Monsters or My Pet Monster, you know, that's definitely where we're going with it. You know, you've got the devil on your shoulder, but we don't have an angel on the other one over here. So it's a very, you know, theologically powered book. I bring in all different kinds of religions and mythologies, and how would this person or this child with this monster deal with these individuals, especially when they're drawn into a much larger scheme than one of them knew about. So if you're into that, if you're into films that you wish had grown with you through your youth, this is definitely one of them. We've got a Little Nemo, the Dream Master variant that'll be coming out for this next one as well. So we're really hyped about bringing in the cosplay variants. But anyway, yeah, that's me. You can catch me at Dust Morell on Facebook. I'm super cool with anybody asking questions or talking. Just anybody shoot shit. And then, like I said, we're on Kickstarter right now for Greed. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sweet. And Chuck can promote one of them.
One thing? Oh, geez. You know, I'll because I was really brought on here to talk about Heavens Decoded, so
Yeah.
I'll talk about that and then throw some other things in real quick. But Heavens Decoded is on Kickstarter right now. We're funded. It's a sci-fi epic, basically about it's a little bit in the future, and it's about a crew who ends up going into space on an archaeological dig of sorts, and they end up finding stuff that brings them in way over their head, and they find out that they're actually in the middle of something that is intergalactic and that could really affect the lives of billions and billions of people across galaxies. So really exciting story, really fun to be a part of. Issue 1 is out right now. I think you guys are going to have a blast with that. Check that out. I'm also a writer and editor, so I would love it if you guys checked out Essence House on the podcast that works now. We just started season 3, episode 2, so we're really excited about that. It's a time travel epic. And I also have my own show. It's called Chuck's Shop Talk. It's every Tuesday, and this Tuesday is my big 25th episode. And I'm going to be having a panel of some of my my favorite buddies, my good buddies. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about all sorts of cool storytelling do's and don'ts and all that kind of stuff. We would love for you guys to come out and check it out. You can find that on my YouTube channel, Chuck's Raw Reviews. Todd, tell us about confidence, my friend.
If he's there.
Yeah,
As I
right?
say, Todd's been locked for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd has a book on Kickstarter right now called Confidence, and I know about that because I am the editor of that as well. It's a terrific space epic also about a guy who's basically he's trying to dig up something, and he's being a con man. He's conning basically an entire space yacht in order to get this one thing. What is that thing? What would drag a man to do that and to try to con hundreds and tons of people on the middle of a space yacht with a military presence? Go check out Confidence now, and you'll find out. Hope that helped, Todd.
Oh, poor Todd.
Go ahead,
But
Katrina.
But the book sounds awesome.
It is
All right,
good.
guys. I'm Katrina Rotes, Cat Scratch Press on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to me there. I'm also on Instagram as Life with Katie, where if you watch right now, I am actually posting real-life pictures of the cats who are characters in my new book, which is on Kickstarter right now, called Apo's Army. It is 20-plus short stories about cats who happen to live in cat colonies down in Florida. We are, 2 weeks in. We have 2 weeks left, and we are currently about 120% funded. We are 3 or 4 backers away from unlocking our next backer goal print, which was done by Josh Lyman. And we are only $49 or so, give or take, from opening our first stretch goal, which is going to provide a really cool bookmark done by Eric Cockrell for everybody who backs at a physical level. That's the word I wanted. Level or layer, just whatever works for you. And this is Zeus. I can't do a podcast without him showing up at some point. So he thinks he's the superstar of the group, and he actually has a story within the book as well.
That's cool. Oh, I think he's back.
There's
Hey.
Todd. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Todd.
I didn't know I was frozen. Like my computer was freezing in the background, but like everything was still live with you guys. Like I could still hear talking, and so I started talking when it was frozen, and then Chuck was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Well, you can't hear me," so had to restart the computer like the good old days.
Did I do okay for the pitch at least?
It sounded good. It sounded good. I cut off in the middle of restart so I could make sure that I got
It's
back
convinced me.
Well, why don't you pitch it then? Let's hear what your pitch sounds like.
Katrina, did you go already?
Yeah.
I did. I went already.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I didn't want to. So like Chuck said, it is about a gentleman named Alan who is a con man in space. He is on a luxury cruise liner, and he's basically charming his way, or at least lying his way through most of the people on there, so that he can collect some pieces to a puzzle that we are not all privy to as readers until the very end. So you got to read to find out exactly what he's trying to do and what he's trying to get from this cruise ship.
Right on.
And it's a nice, lighthearted, humorous book. It's not overly serious. You know, it's got its serious moments and all, but it's meant to be lighthearted and just fun. Just a lot of fun.
Love it.
It's exciting.
Well, thanks everybody for coming on. And
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. Yeah,
Yay,
really
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
Blast.
me.
Good time.
Learned a lot.
This is a good group.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It was
I
mad
might
fun.
turn this into an actual podcast if I feel like editing it. But it's going to be like 4 parts. But
This dude works his ass off all the time. He's like, "This is my one day off, guys. I don't know if I'm gonna make it through it."
yeah, I'm also going to be on CromCon the 29th. But yeah,
Yeah, I believe I'm on CromCon. I think the 30th. I think I should
I'm
check my
doing the
calendar.
same thing that I'm doing here on that. Just, yeah, I did a lot of these for this month because like everybody has a Kickstarter this month. I don't know why.
Everybody.
They're like, be like, Greg's not gonna have money in May. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, and I'm gonna.
Oh, it must be the 29th because I'm on right before you. I just remembered that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good that one of us knows when we're going to do it.